agenda is set. What do we have in store?
Approval of the amended employee agreement regarding the city manager position.
Who's going to speak to?
It's pretty simple. We're going to change the start date in the document from June 7th to today, May 15th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Welcome, Miles.
Okay, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is adoption of an amendment resolution establishing the regular meeting dates of the Belmont City Council for 2023.
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say
Aye.
aye.
And just for the record, that was to change the June
One day.
meeting date. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes. Okay. Which will now be.
A little caveat to that. You guys, the number financing number 3. That's just for your information tonight, and then you guys will officially have to approve that at a resolution at the June meeting. For closing the next day. We got that confirmation.
Okay. So that's the June meeting is going to be June 12th instead of June 5th. So
Yes.
that's yes. Okay.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the installment financing contract with JPMorgan Chase for the Recreation Center.
So we just move on, right, James?
Yeah, we don't do
Because
anything.
we're going to actually
Yes,
approve it.
information only.
Correct. Information if you had any questions about it, this is your time to ask.
Okay.
It's 3.4% at 15 years, right? I think
Yeah.
that's what we had.
That's right. And we don't have any issues by kicking this off to the June meeting, right? I mean, obviously, I know we can't, but okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
we confirmed that today with David Chief with First Round Advisors and delivering the resolution that we put on that agenda for approval from you guys. The timing really doesn't matter. We confirmed that with them. The LGC meeting is on the 6th. And we'll have our approval as well.
Okay, and then when would it go into effect with them, I guess? When would
So we close them alone the very next day.
the very next day? Okay, perfect. Perfect.
Thank you, Jared.
Thanks, Jared.
All right, next item on the agenda is the budget workshop.
All right. I'll put before you some handouts. It'd be easier to just go over it that way with all these numbers than the screen.
I haven't been handed a handout. Here. Thank you.
The first 4 pages are made up of the budget ordinance. So this is presenting to you a budget tonight with a tax rate of 46.5 cents.
Thank you.
So if you want to go ahead and move forward to page 5, and this is giving you a snapshot of your general fund by department, and you'll see each department there. You'll see the fiscal year 22-23 numbers. You'll see the department requested budget. You'll see a manager recommended. And then you also see those last 2 columns, which are helpful for you to spot changes. As you can see, the percent of the total budget and the percent of change from the prior year. So each department has been broken up into 3 items for you. All the line items are in the very, very back, and we'll get to those later for you. But this is easier for you to be able to just look at it by department. And you can see the personnel costs, and then operation costs, and then capital that make up each department. And if there's any of the changes that you would like additional information on, like for instance, I see one that sticks out, like planning and zoning. You know, there you see a 56% increase in operations. and that is, it's going up from, the 163,000 to 255. And the reason for that is, the comprehensive plan update, and other plans that are planned to be put in place this year. And you can see that this is put together using in red on page 6, that this general fund budget was put together again with a 46.5 cent tax rate, which balanced the budget. On page 7 is your utility fund, water and sewer. And the same thing there for your water plant, your waste treatment plant, the water and sewer. You can see there also the personnel cost, operations, and capital. And you also see your stormwater fund there. So there's snapshots that give you an idea of where we stand. As far as new positions in this new fiscal year that we are recommending, they're on page 8. There's 8 positions that are requested, or recommended, that is, and in the police department, a patrol officer. You see their salary and benefits. Also recommended is a firefighter. The firefighter, how that's working is the inspections. What they're doing is pulling a person off of a fire truck so that they can become the full-time fire inspector. They do both jobs currently, and we have enough work for them to do that full-time. So that person would be full-time fire inspector, so we would just need to replace that person on that truck. So it'd be replacing a firefighter. And there's also projected revenue for the first time ever that you'll see in the line items. In the past, we have never charged for fire inspections, which most municipalities, counties do that. And our fire department has requested and recommended that we begin to charge for those fire inspections. They're putting together a rate sheet for that, but it would be in line with what everyone else is paying across the county. And it's anticipated to bring in $60,000 in additional revenue, which more than offsets the new fire position. The next 2 positions are in administration, a customer service specialist, and human resources. Both of those positions will be split 50-50 among your general fund and your water and sewer fund. And the customer service specialist we believe is needed on the first floor, because as you come into City Works, we don't have that contact person that's there. Also, we're missing a lot of phone calls and not getting to those timely. And there's a lot of other things that they can help with work orders, helping people get in and out of the building, and so on and so forth. Human resources, the HR department has a lot of things that they're required to do. It's we say it's not just the complaint department anymore, for sure, because of all the other things they have to do with insurance and liability. And I don't know if she is here, if Dacia is here, but she'd be able to speak to that for sure. We have had the same amount of human resources personnel from the time we were 5,000 to now close to 17,000. So it's staff would recommend that we add another person to that department to be able to cover everything they need to do and be able to put eyes on all the things that are coming in and out, because there's just so much things can slip through the cracks without having enough people.
Are there potential savings there?
We do think so, for sure, that there could be potential savings because, for instance, when people are leaving the city and the onboarding and offboarding, those types of things are very important to make sure people get off the insurance and we're not paying for people's insurance that don't work here anymore. And making sure that we are paying people's insurance that work here. I mean, there's a lot of different things, and we've seen some issues that a lot of things were found out through the finance department when we were going through audit processes, and they're putting their eyes on it from our own finance department. So we believe for sure that there will be potential potential savings there. I'm not saying it's gonna cover a position, but it also covers us liability-wise, because these are the types of things that can cause bigger issues. Were you able to do it? No? Okay. We're working here on something happened to our Office 365. I don't know if maybe we should use a laptop or something. Plug into their account.
Oh.
Was there an HDMI? Plug it in and try. Sorry, y'all. Feel free to ask more questions, because I don't want to just keep rambling and say too much. So
I think we discussed that at one of our previous meetings about how things were, and with the insurance, things are slipping through the cracks, that people around the insurance that shouldn't be on the insurance because they had left and no one was catching that. So.
yes.
Or people that weren't on the insurance or were supposed to be on the insurance.
Yeah.
It's a new hire termination process was not working real well.
Yeah.
So, in recreation, these were two planned positions from the prior year we had talked about. We hired two last year, which was the center director and a recreation specialist. I believe both have been brought on board. I know the director has. Okay. And so this would be a new recreation specialist, and then we didn't talk about this last year, but the janitor, I don't know if we talked about it or not, but the janitor is something we recommend to have throughout the day, because you know it'll be an ongoing process of empty trash cans, cleaning bathrooms, and helping set up tables.
I think we discussed that at the retreat.
Yeah.
Memory serves. So what would the recreation specialist's duties be? This is different than the center director.
Referred to ZIP.
Yes, we'll need at least 3 full-time people to operate that. We operate now about 85 hours. That's going to consist of somebody being there from 8 to 5, then somebody being there from 1 to 9, at least 2 people, because that's a huge facility. So, the content of those hours, you have to have staffing to meet that request, unless we have to cut back hours. So, right now the hours are from 7 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8:30 to 4 on Saturdays. The members will be starting on Saturdays up until Saturday through Sunday.
Let me ask, what is a recreation specialist specifically? Is it just a person on site, or?
The recreation specialist will be in charge of different programs. The one that came on board today, she'll be doing the education aspect of the program, and then the other guy will be doing a combination of both athletics and education. Because we do have a lot of different programming that's going on at that site, so we're not having staff.
Okay.
How many staff do we currently have dedicated to the rec center?
The rec center right now, just those 2 and 4 part-time people.
So 2 full-time, 4 part-time, plus another potential 2 full-time.
Yes, sir.
So 4 and 4, if I'm doing my math right. Okay.
So the organization sheet, able to bring that. I would say that we're going to have 13 in athletics, 13 in the rec center to be able to meet our requirements that we're trying to have right now. And those 13 will be the 4 full-time positions in the rec center, and then 9 part-time staff. That's going to consist of somebody at the front desk. We're going to have somebody man the front desk here, at the main entrance. This side will be open until 5 p.m. This side will be open until 9 p.m. We're going to have staff will be able to meet both of the sites. So that's going to be at least 3 to 4 positions just as the secretarial part of it. Then the other part-time staff will be helping us with programming, rec centers, and also upstairs. I mean, I know you guys have took a tour of the facility. This is not much longer than you think from the outside. So it's going to take staff to be able to keep up.
Are the part-time positions already in the budget, or do we need to approve those at some future date?
Probably need to approve that today.
Okay.
How many future part-timers?
Future part-time, about 2 or 3 more.
And then in streets, the maintenance techs, Bill, if you want to share anything you can, that's because of taking on the new services as far as, you know, the brush collection, leaf collection, just the extra things seasonal that happen at Christmas time, and any other duties.
This is kind of an extension of our discussions last year, but our services have grown, our city has grown, but our department has not. So it'd be to help get boots on the ground for some of these services, make sure we're meeting the needs of our residents in a way that's effective.
Hey, Bill, quick question for you. I wasn't on council when the decision was made to bring that all internal as opposed to contracting it out with Waste Pro as it pertains to the, I believe it was leaf collection and bulk pickup and stuff like that. Is that correct?
Yard waste pickup.
Yard waste collection. Are we still tracking to provide the city a savings by doing that in-house as opposed to contracting that out to third party?
Yeah, so we had done the analysis based on 4 staff, with benefits and with the price of the equipment, and it had priced out with that staff that it was still a savings. And even with additional 2, it'd still be a savings. If you recall, the rest of the council may recall, their prices had more than doubled in that new contract because apparently in the past contract, a waste pro rep had made a mistake and extended the contract at the last cost it was. So the increase in the cost of the contract was pretty extreme.
And then came and tried to get us to amend it.
Yeah, I wasn't here for that.
Yes, I was in the audience.
Yeah,
Yes,
their tipping fees went up.
yes.
So, yeah, it's still a cost savings, and to be quite honest with you, a lot of these contractors are getting out of the leaf collection business altogether because it's a lot of work. So it's unlikely we in the future be able to find the contractor to handle that service for us. Just with how expensive it is to run, and then the complaint volume that's generated if we mess it up. This is what was happening.
And the other thing, one of the contractors that might have been a possibility, you were going to bag them, and then they were going to take the bags and open the bags and dump them, and so that's environmentally just ridiculous. So you have a lot of pieces, yeah.
And the city looks a lot better.
I think our and I've looked at the tonnage data. Our staff has been far more efficient in collecting yard waste and leaves just based on tonnage.
And are we able to measure the complaints? So have we reduced the complaints we received from when it was with Waste Pro?
Yeah, I keep track of all that.
Thank you.
And I did compare it. We have reduced complaint volumes, especially with leaves.
Let me ask one quick question. And I don't know how this factors in, but this new equipment being controlled by a toggle stick was going to eliminate the need for the 1 or 2 guys. You know, one held the vacuum, removed the vacuum, the other one you had a raker. So I mean, how has that worked out in the personnel? Because that's taking 2 people instead of a 3-person crew, you're down to a 1-person crew.
Yeah, we would. I mean, if we didn't have those nice pieces of equipment, we'd be asking for 5 people or 6 people, because you're right. That would require at least 1 additional staff, probably 2, because you need to rake it into the tunnel with the joystick. It's made operations a lot more smooth, and our crews have gotten more proficient at using them too. So that's made our job a lot.
The other thing is it appropriate to bring up the Keep Belmont Beautiful part at this point?
I'd like to.
Okay, yeah, because Keep Belmont Beautiful needs to have a new part-time person, and Bill and I've talked, and the Keep Belmont Beautiful people, we've talked as well, that we need to consider putting a full-time position in Public Works and let Keep Belmont Beautiful be part of it, because he is going to need more manpower. So kind of think about how that needs to play too.
Yeah, so that discussion space, I mentioned it to Miles this morning, just to get, because I have not talked to Kevin about this. This came up recently. Our Wendy Kaufman, who was our KBD administrator, who's part-time, unfortunately had to resign due to some family issues. And I had a conversation with Susan, the chair of the KBD board, about how we want to proceed with either hiring a replacement or reorganizing how it's going to work. And I think when we're looking at the position and looking at what makes sense, it's really tough to attract highly efficient talent with a part-time position. There was a thought that Mark and I discussed about whether a full-time position, not only doing KBB duties, but also doing other administrative duties as needed for Public Works Department, which there certainly is a need for. So Mark and I discussed that. I discussed it with Susan, but I wanted to just throw that out to the council and see if there was interest in that. Since it's the workshop.
Would that be one of these two, or would that be in addition to the two that you're
So
requesting?
that would be in addition to that.
I see.
What?
This would be more administrative.
I'm not as close to this as I probably should be, but what does the KBB admin do?
Yeah, so the job description revolves around a lot of volunteer coordination, revolves around also social media posting, revolves around working with the board directly and managing projects, getting the big sweep and the city-wide day coordinated, and helping the board kind of navigate, because most of the board is made up of people who have full-time jobs, right? So it's kind of navigating that. So a lot of administrative tasks that our volunteers of the board don't have time or the energy to do. So that's kind of thing. Now, I will say one thing, and Susan is here, I don't know if she'll be able to speak, but our volunteers who do our Flower Power, I don't know if you see them on the downtown, they save the city a lot.
You're talking about over 30 people just doing that part of the project.
Yeah, they save, that means our staff doesn't have to weed downtown. So there certainly is a great benefit to keeping, our KV board intact and keeping those volunteers active and engaged. If we lose that, that turns to a public works task, which we will do, but it's going to cost us a lot more. That's kind of the cost benefit.
Out of curiosity, again, I'm just throwing it out there purely for the budget talks, but we have a customer service specialist that's being requested. Is it possible to lump two positions into one? I brought this up last year in regards to trying to consolidate when we add on staff. I mean, is that a possibility?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as you were talking, but I'll let you answer.
I mean, I would have to see the scope of that job. I would talk with Jared, and I think we already think there's enough work for this person.
Yeah, I think we need a full-time customer service, just customer service. I think leaving those two, I don't know how efficient that would actually be. Plus administrative tasks. Not sure that we might need to hire another part-time person to cover all those duties. Need one and a half for all that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to Martha and I spoke about it. But do you have any other questions about the other things?
Okay, well, since we've allowed, I kind of went over these in each department, kind of weighed in on those, but police didn't get an opportunity. So if you want to, like the chief, they did recommend 4 positions. We've talked about it, and there's only one in the manager's recommended budget, but I want to give you the opportunity.
I think we do, and me and Mark kind of talked about this, and it pertains to the police, additional police officers, but just curious from your perspective, Corky, in regards to our maintenance of the highway for the interstate for 85, is that something that we can get out of, or is that something, Martha, you're shaking your head now?
No, they won't take it back.
Well, is it really their option? They're not supplementing us with any type of funds, are they?
No.
To take care of their responsibility on the state road, and they're not giving us money to expand our current state roads. But is there not a reason why we can't just kick that straight back to them and say, look?
We've tried several times. Even when Chad was here, I was involved with it early on. It was one of the first things he addressed. It's like a real hard one.
Well, what's
Will they at least pay us for our services of the highway?
The way they look at it is through the federal funds that they provide every year. That's kind of how they handle that.
What is the genesis of that? I mean, is this common up and down 85 for municipalities to take over the highway patrol's responsibility?
Normally they do if it's in incorporated city limits. Like the only thing the highway patrol does in Charlotte is 485, 77. The rest of the major roads are handled by CMPD and the traffic. So that's the only 2 roads that they actually patrol per se. Of course, there are like citations everywhere, but those are the 2 main thoroughfares they handle. Unfortunately,
What was the genesis of this? I mean, how did we get it? Do you know?
it was before I came back, so I don't know how we ended up back with it.
I think the fire department wants to weigh in.
Yeah. I sat with Chief James during that meeting. His objective was to be able to qualify for federal grants. I take Rex out there all the time. I look specifically at, are you sure you want to do this? And when he what would be the repercussions of notifying the state saying, hey, we're not gonna do this anymore? I think it'd be a conversation we could have.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
it's-
like what federal
it's-
grants are we, like, I'm not aware of any federal money that we're getting for this.
So do we get monies for doing this through the federal grant process? Do we currently use those grants for, have we received any grant money since we've?
We do have federal grant money.
Okay.
Government process, we have the 24,500 every year. As long as we get approved for it, normally it's around, we get approved for it.
So you guys are tracking the grants that you're getting that are specifically related to the responsibility of patrolling or handling wrecks on 85? Well, could we look at it and say, I mean, a cost benefit? I mean, because your time out there, you guys are out there for hours and hours, and there's a cost associated with that. I mean, if it doesn't make sense, if we're overweighted on costs and our grants, are up here, then
One more thing I forgot to mention is our North Carolina Government Highway Safety Program. We have the grant for the position for the DW enforcement position. I don't know how that played into that as far as how we articulated for us to get that position. If that was included in the stats for that position or not. We're going on our third year for that. So that is more federal. North Carolina is actually going to get some federal funds come down and drawn out from the state. So that may be something else that may happen for another year, but after next year's budget, at the end of this year's budget is coming, then we can take that position on full time. We got to do so. Then maybe at that time, we could probably try to work through that, but that's one of the things that may give it that.
Well, that's a step down grant anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're probably at like 40% or something at this point.
And that is directly correlated, we think, with servicing the Hawaii.
Or with the initial one. In the initial narrative, it was 85 data was included. It helped get the grant. I don't know if Tyler's continued that.
Yeah, they still require 85 data on that particular grant because of the staff. The accidents and the DWI.
I mean, can we take a look at it, see if it makes sense? I mean, if you're out there for hours and you're out there for hours, does that not leave the citizens in Belmont somewhat vulnerable? If we've got you guys tied up 2 or 3 times a week on 85?
Well, that's extra people that we got to pay to fill. I mean, anytime we send a crew out there to the highway, I mean, we got to have people here to respond to whatever else is going on in the city.
The other thing that I would say is ever since we took care of it, we had taken care of the drop that lane, where it was the wall.
Yeah.
On that. We have a big reduction in wrecks out there. It's not as common and they're not as serious as far as injuries and things as they were. To the point where we had special meetings with the Highway Patrol and they were sort of pushed it back into Met County as far as the wrecks that were occurring instead of over here. So they weren't too pleased about that. But we did have a pretty big reduction in wrecks all the way across lane. And when they resurfaced the lanes up, the roadway, they redid the lines and dropped that lane off where the lane moved it over and made it like an exit lane coming from the way station right there.
Mm-hmm.
So that helped us tremendously over the last year and a half.
And just to give you some perspective, when we had a fatality some years ago, the Highway Patrol weighed in on that, and they were not happy that we didn't have the highway back open, and we don't have the investigative group to do that, so they were not very pleasant to work with.
If only they were in a position to do something about that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We've been in many meetings, teams meetings with DOT and all the people who are stakeholders in the new 85 widening and 74 widening projects and all the top of the bridge and the breaking ground and all of that stuff that encompasses that. We meet monthly about that. We've made a lot of headway with DOT on some of the things that we're involved with. So we have a better relationship, I say, now with DOT than we had prior. We're actually in the fall. We're going to actually have IMAP channel put on our radios where we can communicate as a way to plan for what's upcoming with all the widening projects that we can discuss about the bridge and all that stuff, beautification of them and all that. This other side of that's the towing contract that goes along with it and a lot of other things that we accomplished. So we've been meeting monthly. We've made some headway.
Chief.
All right. We'll move on, I guess, to talk about the revenue. Of course, a little different year than in the past. With a reval year, we do those every 4 years. So you can see in the top left corner, this is the most updated numbers as of May the 3rd from the county. I asked David Turbeville if he could give us the most up-to-date numbers. You'll see the 22 number, the real and personal, the 1.8 billion. I won't read all the rest of the numbers. And real property, which is your property values, homes, and then the personal, 111 million, and that's your vehicles, boats, so on and so forth. And you can see 2023, you've got your estimates there. So increase going up to 2.9 billion in real personal or real property, and 127 million in personal. And over to the right, you'll see, so we've got a total valuation of 3.1 million. So that was the number that we started with. That's what each year that comes off of like your TR2 report. Billion.
I was going to say.
Billion. And then we want to consider, and what we did with this, and this is all over the county across the board, everybody pretty much did the exact same thing. Considering a 10% appeal rate, we don't know what that is. And then you take that off, and then your collection rate was reduced to 97%. In typical years, it's a little above 99%. We have a really good collection rate. You can never budget more than your previous year's collection rate. The county recommended the 97, obviously because it thinks some people either may not pay them or may not pay them in full. And so that's where that 97 comes from. So your estimated valuation that the tax, that the levy that is built on, your budget is built on, is the 2.7 billion that you see underneath there. So then the worksheet that you see below that comes straight from the North Carolina Local Government Commission, and it's straight off of their website, and it's plug and play. You put in these numbers, you put in your 2 prior years that come out of your financial statements, and then bing, 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 it takes you all the way through, fills it out for you, and then you'll see down here on the bottom right-hand side where it says a revenue neutral tax rate, and this is something that is required just to be stated and included in the budget message, and so it is saying that a revenue neutral number is 0.3925. So as we are currently, the tax rate is 49.5 cents. This would be 39.25 cents for revenue neutral. And what that is, just to go ahead and state again, is the revenue neutral number is to collect the same that you collected the year prior, basically, right? So,
with a little bit of growth rate assumed based on a 3 to 5 year average baked into it. So it basically just says this is the exact same levy, exact same collection that you get from the prior year, just slightly additional growth that's assumed of 1 to 2% growth. And so it averages that based on the inputs that were put into that workbook.
So, based upon that, if your tax rate remained the same, it's not a tax increase, it's your value, your greatest assets increased in value.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. So the revenue neutral is 39.25, and we're recommending decreasing to 46.5. Because I know we've talked before. Just surprised, where does the rest come in that we feel like 46.5 is where we need to be. Like what, because like Jared said, 39.25 is, that's the equivalent of what we had last year, plus assuming a little bit of growth. So what's the where does the rest of the money come from that we need to have it be at 46.5?
Two big things. One is your continued growth. As you continue to grow, everything else is growing as well. And then two, to fund a 5-year capital improvement plan. So you could go down to 39 cents and fund everything next year and your capital for next year. But you couldn't continue that over 5 years. So this is, as we talked about when we look at this model again in a little bit, what this model has done is projected you for years into the future. And it's incorporated growth that's going to happen on both sides, financially as far as on revenue side and expenditure side. So we're looking at both of those. It's also looking at a 5-year capital improvement plan to fund those projects. And that's the big exercise that we're going to need to go through tonight, is deciding on those projects. What's included in here is the ones that seem to have come out of that meeting that we had a few weeks ago. But know that only 5 years worth of projects are included. So when we see down the road, if you start to reduce that tax rate further, then you're going to watch your fund balance continue to drop year after year after year. We'll be able to show you what that fund balance would be if based on what tax rate you want to set. There's scenarios here in your handouts of reducing it all the way down to 45.5, and then there's also a scenario in there. And don't jump ahead yet. We'll get to it in just a second. There's a scenario at the very end of a revenue neutral rate, and you also get to see that. And we've got some assumptions built in that we'll go over those in a moment too. So, and Jim, salaries is like to say that big line item. When we looked at that, Jared and I, because we had the same question as we were going through this, and it's really just continued growth of operations, personnel, and capital.
Is that what, because I noticed in going through the initial pages in the spreadsheet, it seems like operations were increasing everywhere in every department by double figures. Is that what, because I look at percent, or at least percent change, I should say, because I look at, I think Parks, city attorney, 48.76% change, planning and zoning we talked about, 56%, police 31% change in operations, fire 44%, Main Street 28%, recreation 35%, but that's probably, with the rec center and new hirings, I could understand that. But, it just seems like a lot of increase in operations across the board, year over year.
What will help you is going back and looking at the line items. Don't do it right this minute. But okay. Starting on like fire, for instance, is going to be on page 23, and that's going to give you a breakdown. You're going to see what we did in 22, 23, and what's proposed in 23, 24. And there were a lot, like for instance, uniforms is a fairly substantial increase, and Chief Davis can talk to that. But one thing that I was able to do, or we were able to do this year, is have financial statements.
Well, that is a benefit, yeah.
They were updated, so I've not had that luxury since I've been in Belmont to have current financial statements. So we're able to go back and actually see what was spent the year prior. There was a lot of just flat line green line items across for maybe a few years, and they just kind of.
Well, because was that related to? Because that was more capital improvements. Because I was going to say, didn't we? One of our directives was like, hey, let's freeze things while we deal with this rec center. But that would have been capital projects, right?
Yeah. I'm saying as far as just your regular line items, like equipment or fuel or some of these items, you'd see this go, but that really wasn't your true cost.
Right.
At the end of the year.
I see.
Let me ask you a question. I've talked to Mark about this, and Alex has brought it up in terms of soft landing. I mean, your modeling is showing growth and growth and growth. At some point, we're going to be built out. We're going to reach a plateau. How are we planning for that? How are we modeling for that? Because once we're built out, we can't fit anything else on the peninsula. Our revenues are going to become somewhat static, but our costs are going to continue to go up. I mean, the model's not going to be sustainable unless we come up with some sort of answer to that.
It is it's based on what kind of growth rate you want to put in there. And that's what we'll show you. We're recommending a conservative growth rate because of what you're saying. You'll see that the growth rate starts a little bit higher. It starts out lower. Remember, Martin, we talked about when we're including certain projects, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then we increase the growth rate, but then we decreased it when you're getting past into the late 2030s to a 1% growth rate because you would be growing. So it is baked into the model. It's all about what growth rate you use. But as far as expenses, we've got that continuing to grow. Mm-hmm. And that's why you'll see over time, when you get into later years, your things start dropping. You're like, what's happening? Why is it dropping off so fast? Because your operations have continued to increase. So we hope maybe we're wrong with some of those growth assumptions and they come in high. That's what you hope. But we want to be conservative thinking about that, because if we're wrong, you don't want to be wrong. It's better to come back the next year and adjust.
And just throwing it out there, I mean, we don't have to get into the weeds on it right now, but kind of what I brought up last year, again, to what Richard was saying, was leveling out. It's not just also altering the growth side of it to the revenue. We also need to start looking internally as to how do we start reflecting it in the expenses as well, because ideally we shouldn't start seeing expenses continue to go up. The plan in the future needs to level where we're able to glide. And wherever that falls, I mean, we'll have to figure out this with the tax rate for the future, but they need to level out. It can't be this and then this. Obviously, then you're going to have to raise your taxes by a ton, and I feel bad for that council in the future. But we also need to reel in our expenses and understand from a realistic approach, what do we need to be running the city as opposed to just keeping going up and up and up and up, and as like we discussed earlier.
And it will continue to increase stuff.
I mean, we can
No, I understand that. I understand that, but there's a way, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities to reel it in to where we're more realistic.
Right. But I mean, certain things are always going to increase.
Well, no, I'm not arguing that at all.
Yeah.
And, really, that model, what you're seeing those for so many years, that's about, I mean, you're still going to see that growth through there. I mean, we're not shutting down business. There's plenty of time there. Once you get past 2040 and those time frames is when you're talking about, we're kind of.
Well, and that's what I'm talking about is the future years. That's why I said futures council.
So for this, it's really not even taken into consideration.
Right, but we have to be mindful of that for the future.
I did want to add to Kevin's point about, while we were getting out of that mess, kind of keeping expenditures flat, we also were very conservative on the revenue side. But we do have data to look at on these, especially 2022. So just in public safety alone, we were over budget by almost $500,000 in police and $50,000 in fire. We've gotten over budget findings for that in the past. You can see big line items here, like $53,000 in related gas. We updated some of those numbers today to reflect that. So I think having current pertinent data to operate with and actually present that in the budget, I think is the ticket here. We actually have data to, back where the money is coming from, why the change happened.
Right. And Kevin, just one more thing to that point where I was getting at. Over the total expenses of just the general fund for the positions we're adding is 2.21% from what I'm calculating. And that's salaries plus benefits. So in the future, ideally, once we start getting to that place where we are growing, or we've developed out, we're not going to continue to add on positions and add on positions. And that's where I'm talking about where we start stabilizing. Because 2.21% or the entire general fund of I'm assuming $1 million, I just backed out your $445,000 of salaries and benefits, is a huge impact to the overall budget.
And the model isn't showing adding any positions except for those 4 police and few fire. That's it. So that's showing that we're never adding positions after that. So it's not growing positions. The model doesn't increase positions. It only increases their salary, which is based on a cost of living.
Which is 5%, correct?
Yeah.
Well, but it doesn't always have to be. But
it doesn't. But that's
I'm saying as it's in here.
Yes.
Well, that was one of the things that we probably want to look at, like assuming a flat 5% out indefinitely, I think is probably problematic. I was kind of playing around with this weekend, and regardless of what you set the tax rate at, assuming and I use the growth rates that Kevin and Jared put together, assuming those growth rates, that is not sustainable. I mean, it's just a matter of like what size the fund balance hits before you finally start just cutting into it permanently and drawing it down. So I think I think that's one part of this that's probably worth looking at is like, what do we anticipate that the trajectory of that doing? Because that affects like how you plan for the capital projects and stuff that we'll be doing, in the next several years too. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but.
So we finished page 9. Quick snapshot of just all your three funds. So that has your general fund expenses, general fund revenue. You can see the recommended one at the 46.5 balances that budget and makes expenses and revenue equal. You'll see your enterprise fund, the same, setting it at, and I'll go ahead and state these, but go back to general fund, 20,621,683. And then for the enterprise fund, water and sewer at 9,293,983. And you'll see that's down from the year prior because we're spending much less in capital. We can get to that in a little bit on our rates. Then you'll see the stormwater fund at 770,200. Then on page 11, this is some information that can just help you put things in perspective. You've got the value of a penny, and you can see at the very top, which is, remember our valuation we talked about, that 27, is based on the 10% appeal rate and the 97% collection. And so that would be the current valuation. You can see what was proposed. Each penny is worth $271,008.88. So if we went to 46.5, basically you take $813,026 and reduce that from the projected revenue at the current rate. If you went to revenue neutral, that would be a decrease of $2 million. $2,777,841. Right. That's what. So then, not theoretically, it is. That's your difference. So for a $400,000 home, we always like to do this. Throw out a comparative something for you to kind of visualize. So on Zillow right now, the average home in Belmont's $400,000. So you can see what the tax levy is for 49.5 cents, the 48.5, 47.5. Basically, it comes down to $40 per penny. That's what it's coming to. So based on the current rate, if you go down to revenue neutral, that's a $400 difference. And that we already have said that's 10 cents. Is the 10 cent increase of the revenue. Okay. Any questions? We'll move on to page 12. Now, this is what tonight revolves around, I think, are two things. One we've talked about is the growth rate. Tonight, I think the things we need from you all is to agree on a growth rate and to agree on the projects that you want to include and include in this 5-year CIP. Once you agree to those two things, yes, Jim.
Sorry, when you say agree on agree what we anticipate the projected growth rate would be, because no matter what we might agree on, the actual growth rate might not be that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just come to terms with something that you would agree on, because when you're looking at this, the two things that affected the most are the growth rate and the CIP,
right,
which should set your tax rate for you, if you look at it that way. So if we go through this exercise here, you've got, in the past you just had the laundry list of projects. So each year, the plan for this is then, next year when you're looking at this, it's going to say 25 through 29. We're going to have one more column. So before we go through these, just take a look at page 13 to give you a snapshot. So you see a project we have included here. Those bullet pointed ones are not included in this CIP because those were ones that generally you didn't have consensus about. See what I'm talking about with the heavy rescue vehicle, the Glenway parking lot, City Hall renovations, Ford Center, dog parks, all these things. So these were the kind of projects that are still on your radar. They're still included in that Sears catalog, that CIP item.
What's Sears again? I have.
Oh, plenty of them. Okay. Those were the ones that were kind of like, no, we didn't know, but they're big ones that were hanging out there that I just wanted them to, at council, I wanted you to know that, remember, this isn't your whole CIP. This is just what you could afford to do relatively over a 5-year period, which you can break off and really choose. Also, what we have the capacity to do, because there's a lot of projects here. You just have to have the staff to be able to manage the project. So as you go through this, just know that this isn't an all-inclusive list. Each year you're going to be adding some things. There's going to be things you want to add. So, and then another tidbit I'll give you as you go through here, like for instance, when you say, well, look at this picnic shelter, and I've said this a couple people here, you're probably tired of hearing it. Let's say it's $110,000. Well, when we go through this and we turn that off on our little list, it doesn't really do anything when you're looking at it over this huge budget over a long period of time. The things that really matter the most were the high dollar items, the big ticket items. When you turn those on and off, that makes a big impact on your future expenses. We can go through, and you all can kind of tell me what you want to do. We can go through these now, or we can come back to it. And on here are scenarios. I don't know if we want to get into this, or if y'all want to change and see these other pages.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin, just a quick question. With what's proposed, I remember us talking about this last year, and I think council just said it, but with what is proposed concurrently with all these projects, what is the ratio? Because aren't we trying to operate off of a certain ratio to our debt?
Yeah.
That's in the model.
It is in the model?
Yeah.
It's maintained.
Will we say 12%?
12%. Your financial advisors say you can go up to 15%.
Okay, I
easily.
see it.
But based on every one, okay, so on this model, if you go to page
16.
14, look at the assumptions first. So you are all familiar with the model, okay? And we'll go back and look at this. You know what's kind of fed into it. You know what it does. So here's the assumptions when you look at these next few pages. So we've estimated our 2024 total property valuation, and you see that number I've told you 3 or 4 times tonight. We're basing it on that 2.7 billion. And then you see that on our CIP, we're utilizing a mix of pay-as-you-go and debt service to fund the 5-year CIP. So everything that we could try to debt service, we've tried to do that. Things like vehicles, anything that had collateral attached to it, it's assumed that we would debt service it. Things like a greenway, you don't get loans for greenways. It's hard to do. You have to put up some other collateral. So that's where the pay-as-you-go. So you'll see that we're setting back a certain amount of money each year till we get to our goal. And then also in this model, we have included certain developments. So instead of just saying, we're going to grow 5%, pull that number out, that's what we think. What we've included here, and this should really help you, we've included Del Webb, Worrells River, the Morris, River Mist, Smith Farm, and Dixon Village. And I can show you how it's planned in the model. It's already in there. Most of them are built out over a 2-year period. We have Del Webb happening over a 10-year period. That's what they told us.
So basically, these are all things that have been approved but are in various stages of build out. Nothing that has not been approved, regardless of whether it is proposed or at what stage in that process it is, none of those things are included if they haven't been approved by council yet.
Correct.
Yeah, the growth percentage number in the model captures anything that's not currently planned.
Right.
As well as like, just general price appreciation, that kind of thing.
Because that's just our generic plug, right, for the future.
Yeah.
So that's why we've assumed a 1% growth rate for the first 3 years, because you're putting all these projects in there. And we put their total evaluation, and I can show you exactly how much we've estimated per home, and we know how many homes.
So basically, there's more certainty around the more current years because we already know what's in the pipeline.
Right.
So that's included. So that's really important. And then so your growth rate, you'll see we bumped it up to 3% after 2 or 3 years, because we know there's future developments that are going to come on that we haven't approved yet. You haven't approved yet. And so we're accounting for that. And I explained that there, we got a blend. And then also it includes the following future personnel to accommodate growth. In this model, there's 3 police officers planned beginning in 25, 4 firefighters planned beginning in 26, 2 admin in 27, 2 parks and recreation beginning in 27. That number may be low once we open the doors over here. And then 3 more police officers beginning in 2028.
And the basis for those projections is just
future growth when all these other things start coming online, like when the Del Webb is
certainly.
And Dixon's built, Smith Farm's built.
Yes. Well, yes.
Hospital apparently is going to be a hot spot.
But yeah, well, Chief Hawkins used to talk about, people just pulling up and pushing out bodies.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. I remember that vividly.
Yeah, I don't think we could forget that one.
Out of curiosity.
We're going to have that from gas station installed. We've already seen some.
Do they pay anything extra above? Like, does the hospital themselves to the city, do they pay anything above that or not? Like taxes or anything? So they don't pay like a fee for police coming out, like if they want someone stationed there or anything like that?
Oh, whatever.
Because if I remember at Gastonia, isn't there like a police officer always stationed at the hospital?
Gastonia, there's a county police officer there all the time, called the county actually on the building for bid.
Okay.
We've been in talks with the hospital staff. We are, first deals, I guess you could call it, somewhat, will be off duty there to have someone there. They're planning on having some security. It really depends on how things go in the beginning. So they're going to have some security pretty quick. But they're also planning on having us there off duty, as well as hospital emergency, depending on our staff.
Okay, got you.
Riddle me this, Kevin. So all of this, where does corporate tax, where does that fit in? Like of like these warehouses that we've been approving and whatnot, where does that fit in? Corporate taxes?
I'm sorry.
Yes.
My cursor wasn't, the reason I moved here is too far from this.
Oh, I see. Like where like these warehouses that we're approving, where does that factor in? The revenues that we get from those commercial. Okay.
If we know the valuation, we can include it.
So like our friends at the Oak Commerce Center, for instance, that we've approved, but we don't know or I'm assuming that this does bake in the River West or whatever they are calling it these days. So when additional commercial projects come online, that would factor in as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that's what we put in there for that growth rate. It'll get updated each year. We have just better data each year.
Yes.
So on those following pages there, I just want to go over the assumptions, so you know what the assumptions are. And for the people in the room, we'll put this on the television here in a minute, some of these, try to get those scenarios, the real life ones. So you can see what happens with, no tax increase. Staying the same. On your page 50, you're not gonna see it on TV right now, I'm sorry, I'm still in your packet. And so you can see there, that you don't even have a red box there. The red boxes are bad. And on line 16 there, to 2036. That's when your fund balance first dipped between, below 50.
Sorry, to Jim's point, to just confirm, because I'm looking at the new development projects tab and I don't see those in there.
Yeah, I don't think we put in the new warehouse.
No, they're not.
Oh, okay.
Is that because we don't know exactly what they're going to be or what?
I just want to make sure.
Okay.
Yeah, all the revenue. Right?
No, yeah.
Okay. But right now, the growth rate would be. Jared, my cursor's just not working.
Something's going on with that, because when I was typing in my password, it wasn't registered.
Can you then drive with that? Okay, let's do the scenarios. What I'm looking at, council, is like on page 16, for instance. You'll see where see the bar graph and that red line there, that's your target for your fund balance. And that's why that one makes me feel the happiest when that line is going straight across, getting all those bars there. That's showing your fund balance right where you want it. You can see it all the way into the future. You still have a decent fund balance. This is a 46 and a half. And Jerry, you made it a little bit bigger for the folks back home. The folks back there, you can see. So what we're looking at there is, you can see 2024, where the tax rate is reduced to 46 and a half. And there's your value of the penny. The growth rate is over on the right-hand side. There's your growth rate that's been put in. And then when you look at the unassigned fund balance, you can see that it keeps decreasing, but hopefully those growth rates are high. But you still stay okay through 2030. And you can see that only 3 instances you're over your 12%. You're barely over your 12% debt service ratio. So you're really in good shape there with that. And you can go there and show them what happens on where we are currently at 49 and a half, and then at like a 47. Yeah, you can just show them where we currently are right now. You can see that your unassigned fund balances, there's no boxes. If you go down and look at the bar graph, so what we should do is go back and look at the projects, because that affects it the most. Jared can turn projects on and off there, and then you turn the debt ones off on the other page. And
Could we just do a quick demonstration? I just wanted to show something real quick. Can you flip over to the income statement, and then go up to the top where it's got the wages?
5%.
Yeah. So like what I did was I left first 3 years at 5. If you go to year 4 and change that to a 3, because that matches with the fall off in the growth rate, and then if you flip back to the dashboard, you can see the difference that has, because you're actually growing fund balance here, where in the other scenario in 2032 it actually started to chip away at it. So that's kind of the point I was trying to make about bending that curve on the operational expense.
it did make a big impact. I see that. Go back to, Jerry, you want to put the 49 lease code, growth rate's fine. Yeah, go back to like the 46. Okay, yeah, that's whoa. There we go. That's nice. Look at the line stays perfectly straight across.
Yeah, Yeah, because I think the reason I did it the way I did was to match basically wage and benefit growth, which is our largest operating expense, with revenue growth, so that one's not overpowering the other.
On the 3, when you did the 3, did that carry 3 forever?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, I left it at 3 basically forever, with the thought being.
Okay, it stays 3 the whole time.
Yeah. And the thought there is that, like, that would be an average over forever. So, like, you know, if we hit an economic issue, we'd probably not be as aggressive with pay increases that year. So maybe we do 1% or something that year. The following year, if we make up for it with 5%, the average over that time period is 3. So that was kind of the thought there.
And to Mark's point on this, because me and him talked about it and have been playing around with these, this is what I was talking about, that leveling out for the future and controlling our expenses. This is the exact example we were talking about on the phone. So, like, it's possible, it's doable, and you're still providing 3% on average of whatever the weighted, however many years you're putting it. So this is what I was trying to get to, and Mark just articulated and showed it. So
you've got it at 3%. If you go back to that dashboard, all the projects are turned on your CIP. That means you're doing the whole CIP. And where did that leave from the dashboard? At 46.5. Go to 45.5.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably suggest some changes to our CIP program too, but before we got too deep into that, I just kind of wanted to talk through this real quick.
We can show you scenarios if you all want to go through that CIP that you have. Let's let us know.
We are going to be having a salary study, and that does happen every several years, so there are some market adjustments with that as we go along. So just consider that when you're establishing that salary and benefits growth.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was something we talked about.
Yep.
Was putting that on a more regular cadence, so that we're not getting in the situation where it's like, oh, the employees are complaining that they're underpaid. Let's do a salary study. It's like if you do it, I think we suggested every 4 years to line up for the reval. Then you can kind of change all the numbers at the same time, and then the staff gets the warm and fuzzies, and everybody gets paid what they should be. And
the other side and this is from the employer side, the local government, like, we have to match employee contributions. So employees are required to contribute 6% of their pay. The employer side usually increases about 0.5% to 1% annually to continue to fund North Carolina pension. So that's just a basic cost. There's nothing we can do about it. That's established by the state.
And did you say that's 0.5% a year?
To 1.
It increases about 0.5% per year, 0.5% to 1%.
is that a percentage of the salary that we're paying them, or is it?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think right now, local government class is at 12.85 and law enforcement is at 13.2%. So it's steadily increasing. Some of my colleagues and I have talked about it. Eventually, it's probably going to get to the point where employee contributions are going to have to increase, because you can't just always be expecting the municipality agency to pay.
Yeah, that's just a bubble at that point. Yeah.
There's nothing we can do about it. They say 6% and 12%, that's what we do. That's what we do. 7%, 14%, whatever, that's what we do.
Well, there's a lot of, I guess, other costs that are tied to what we actually pay the employees too, because you've got that, you've got the FICA. I think we got a 401k or something similar to it. Yeah.
Contribution match, health insurance, FICA expenses, but that comes out of both employer and employee. Yeah, I just want to mention that.
Do y'all want to go through your?
Yeah, we can do the CIP.
Yeah.
Starts on page 12 for you. You've got them separated into the first group of public safety, you've got infrastructure equipment, and then you've got quality of life. And you're more than welcome. We can just knock off 1 or 2 right now, just show you the impact of it. We can leave that 3% where we've got it, average, to show you some impacts of a couple larger ones if you'd like.
So I'll fall on the sword. Can you turn off the North Belmont Public Safety Station and the associated land acquisition?
And Jared, you're gonna need to take off the debt.
Yeah,
On the dashboard. That doesn't do it. You have to take off the debt.
Yeah. It's to the left.
Yeah, so that project in particular has a very large impact. And something some of us have been discussing is whether the cost benefit on that makes sense. I know that part of the, I guess, the business case for it was to cut back on the
Response
times. I was going to say service times. Response times to North Belmont, and then also facilitating response time to I-85, which we just kind of had a conversation about. So what I was kind of asking myself is whether it makes sense to ask the residents of Belmont to pay $8 million for that.
I'll chime in too. And Chief, we'll talk about that too with what the benefit is. So currently our ISO rating is at 4 or 3, and it's out of a scale of 1 to 9, and 1 being the best and 9 being the worst. Where do the average municipalities sit on an ISO rating? So would you say, and you said we're 3 right now, would you say 3 is well above average though?
I'm not satisfied with it.
You'll never be satisfied until we're 1, right?
There are some easy fixes in the last 2024 ISO report that I read. My budget also reflects that. Most of it's training. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit there that I believe that push us up to.
And what would you say the cost of the training would be? I guess just to get us to that level to fix all the things that were identified. 50,000? And do you think, again, I'm just honest conversation, do you think that training would get us to the level of 2? So I'm looking at the cost benefit like Mark said. So 50,000 versus $8 million for a project up in North Belmont. The reason why I'm a little bit more comfortable talking about it is after talking with Miles and Kevin in regards to our interlocal agreements that we have, particularly up there, and the coverage that we currently have, coming from Mount Holly, and then also from the county. I believe there's a volunteer station out there as well. Is that correct?
Well, the volunteer station in North Belmont, is there any opportunity for us, rather than building a station, to merge or take over that station like we did with the South Point?
Possibility. I had sent a mutual aid agreement to the community trying to talk to the last episode. We did not want to sign that. We did not promise us to keep people in every call. A lot of times we have to go back to every call too. Now, Holly, I spoke with Chief Baker this week. They have some things going on over there that they've addressed in terms of staffing. They're putting also the ladder engine distribution, which they currently have to operating out of now. I don't like to depend on the community fire department, but they already have mutual aid. I have to change our agreement with them because
But we can still get a truck up there from the main fire station. I think Buck told us it was like 7 minutes or something like that, which I think was just barely within, yeah.
the hospital, the Abbey College Road is a concern of mine. That interstate has always been a concern, but I've worked on it. There's a lot of costs. There's a lot of costs. Construction going with the new bridge south and east, moving back toward the east. It's going to be a mess, and getting to those places right now is tough when you start crossing over all those US routes and interstate routes. You build construction in there, then that's going to play that.
What kind of calls are you getting from the Abbey? Because I heard from someone, and I don't know if it's accurate or not, that it's a lot of fire detectors being tripped, kids smoking, things like that.
I have spoken with the police chief over there, they actually started finding students, when we get calls out there, they're finding them, and that money supposedly can be sent back to serve that, but it's never.
But I mean, you have to roll regardless, and that does that create the perception that the need is actually greater than it is by factoring in these calls for service that really are not emergencies? Well, I know, but I mean, hindsight, we see they're not emergencies, but it's driving your data up, which then leads people to believe, oh my God, we had 100 calls at the Abbey over a year, but how many of them were some kid smoking and tripping a smoke detector?
We can go into our software, I can dissect those calls, and if we can calls over there, I can also give you
I mean, I don't want to put public safety at risk, but I mean, to y'all's point, if the reward for the cost is not clearly visible, it's worth considering.
We might be playing with fire.
How did I know? I'm sorry.
The fire department, we're blessed enough to see. I can't house them in the fire. I need 12, but I can't house them. I don't have any more lids. We have 0 administrative office. Our partnership with the South Point Fire Department, I have 1 bay, 4 beds, and 1 office. And that's all we have. Ryan O's on the outside.
Just to confirm too, just for the purpose of this exercise, Kevin, and Jared, by removing the fire station and the land acquisition, does that also remove any type of future hires we would have to hire for that fire station?
Well, yes, for the fire station, but they may still, like you say, you can house them. So I would say, yes, you would cancel those 4 that are planned for the new station, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But if they would still need firefighters, then you'd, like you say, I don't know, would you still need new ones, and then would you need to remodel the current station into?
Put first things first. For example, Gaston is building a new fire station.
Mm-hmm.
They build a new fire station, they buy 1 apparatus, and hire 12 men. Crew on the truck is 4. So with this new station, we already have the apparatus. We would just require 12 staff members to run that station for NFPA station. And I know you hear NFPA all the time. I'm not going to comment you to it. But I like to use this term. It's not a problem until it's a problem. I've been sued in the fire service. Never in law enforcement, but I've been sued in the fire service. And it was just beyond our control, and it was about but again, we're a volunteer agency. It all comes down to the staff. And when they start dissecting those investigations and things go bad, that's what they look at. They're going to look at your staff. How many people you send out there? What was the last team distribution? Your span of control. They look at all of these things. And my personal opinion would be
Let me ask you this, what I would be interested in. I mean, how many calls for service in North Belmont? What types of calls? I mean, can you go into your data and kind of break that out for us? Say, what is an actual fire, or what is an actual emergency versus, what you might not consider? Because I mean, I'd like to know what's happening up there.
Sure, I'll be glad to get that information for you. I don't have that.
Sure.
Medical calls, we don't answer many phone calls anymore.
Was
I have 4 EMTs stationed at Belmont Fire Department. We can't transport. We don't have that equipment. We are certified, and we require those certifications to come to work. And the man laid there with no head. That's sad. That's terrible office on our part. I changed that. Our people need help. We need to respond. We're equipped. We're certified. We should go. And so that's what's driving the call off.
I mean, are you saying you're taking calls that should go to gyms?
We are taking basic medical calls to assist them. They don't have 4 paramedics working the whole county. I was a trooper for 30 years, and I have showed up on wrecks where I waited for a paramedic for 30 minutes while I
I will agree with you on this because whenever I work from home and I'm looking at my townhome, I've got an elderly family that lives in East Belmont near me. And probably once a month there's a 911 call. And I guarantee you probably every single time I've seen a fire truck respond to that first over GEMS or an ambulance coming out there. I have seen that from firsthand.
And I've had to call 911. I don't care what kind of service is on my house. I call for
Yep.
and that's kind of the mentality that we have. Of course, we want to work with our colleagues across the county, state, and all that. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to the citizens. I mean, they pay for this service, and I feel obligated that we should assist them when they call it time. It's a change. It's a change in the fire service. Volunteerism is going out the window. We don't have a lot of volunteers in the fire service, but it's so demanding. Education, I mean, that's, like I said, I spoke to the neighbors, she's a neighbor as well, and we're going to work with it as well. We have to hire full-time people in order to meet the FDA standards.
Is it the sort of thing where, like, if we're responding mostly to medical calls, like, rather than building a giant fire station with, like, trucks and everything else in it, like, would it be possible to stand up a unit that's, like, optimized for responding to those calls so that, like, if you just need a couple paramedics and an ambulance to respond to something, rather than sending a fire truck out with all that involves, like, could you do something like that?
More beneficial than the fire station?
Is there an opportunity to redo our current fire station, build up?
Well, that's another project
Yeah,
on
it
this
is.
list. So that was, I guess.
Well, that was just for certain renovation, like just to replace the flooring. It's not like actually add.
I thought it was to make it bigger. That's what
we
the.
didn't like add new rooms. We didn't have a cost for it necessarily. But you could put a second story on the thing and put living.
See, that's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
part of my thought process here was like, well, maybe we don't need to spend $8 million on a fire station in North Belmont, but we can spend $2.5 million on the main fire station and get that to where it needs to be, and then maybe look at something with the quick response unit to kind of address the need that way. Yeah.
How would you feel about that if that was done?
I'm not a fan, sir, but I understand that. What we're presenting to you is our best speaking with the chiefs in the area and people that I know at the state level as well who come down and look at this, as far as education and exactly what we need in Belmont.
Well, let me ask you to that point. I mean, I'm not sure what I'm hearing from you. On one hand, I think I'm hearing you're busting at the seams, you need more space. That seems to be the critical issue. Is that more critical than having a station in North Belmont? If you were able to increase your footprint on Keener Boulevard with your response times to North Belmont, potentially a quick response vehicle, does that scenario work for you? I mean, is there something we're sacrificing?
Whether you take an engine or a quick response vehicle from the main station in North Belmont, that response time is still going to be 50 minutes. That's what the ISO is. Basically, it's just a lot of engine distribution of equipment station there, so now everyone in that district will see response time less than 5 minutes. I understand what you're saying about making the main station now larger and being able to run the same thing. It's just the response time. It's just under that 5-minute threshold is a challenge. So if we put a station up more, it could be a field station if we choose to read to the main station as a hill station. But the decontamination is huge in the fire service now. 66% of firefighters killed in line of duty deaths are by cancer. We have victims who have died of carcinogen cancer. We have victims on our roster right now who have been victims of carcinogen cancer. The main station or the south station has decontamination we are behind in those, gender neutral, housing. I'm not into that issue. And the issue I temporary fix, but the facilities will not accommodate that. They will provide that time of I do understand this is long term. Please understand that. It is a big not feel strong.
Well, where are we going to proceed to? What, I mean, are we, how is, I mean, we've heard a lot of, information and, what is, where do we go from here?
What we don't know is what the response will be from our legislators. We put in requests for financing.
That is true.
Well, now that could have a huge impact depending on where they land. And I think we ended up, either we prioritized or Donnie and Brad prioritized the North Station
Donnie did.
Yes.
top public safety. So, I mean, that may or may not answer the question for us.
I feel, I mean, and there's also, didn't we designate a certain, or what did we do with the ARPA funds that we were going to designate towards this?
It was $1 million.
Right, it was $1 million, and
we're constrained.
I mean, you could redirect those to the main fire renovations, and that's half the project cost. And then we could, I mean, I don't want to speak for staff, but it seems like that would be something we could get on more quickly, maybe.
Well, the finance department has recommended is that we wait until the next fiscal year, beginning in July, to do the ARPA transaction of the salaries. Right. We have how much remaining?
Almost $2 million.
We have $2 million remaining.
And what was dedicated towards the fire station was a skip grant.
Yeah, not ARPA, but a direct appropriation.
Oh, but that was just a capital. That wasn't appropriate for the fire station. It was appropriate to capital projects, right?
No, it was flash reporting it in our minutes.
Oh.
At the retreat, you all.
Yes.
On the retreat, you said
That would have been 2 retreats ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. It was whether, okay, so. Okay, so we could, in theory, take that money and spend it on main fire renovations. Okay.
Well, I mean,
I think he's just gonna throw that
I'm
question
happy
back.
to talk about other aspects, but you know, I don't know if I'd be comfortable turning that off, as expensive as it might be. I kind of don't. I'd rather not mess with public safety, and I know it's expensive, but I don't think I'd be comfortable turning that off and saying forget about it. That's just me.
Well, I would like to see the data when you have that, because what I want to find out is its relevance to public safety. I understand what you're saying, but I don't know how it's impacting it. The response time, I think you said, would come down somewhat.
Chief, can I ask a question for you? So you gave me a proposal. You emailed a proposal to me from that. What was that gentleman, that group?
So the North Carolina Fire Chiefs Consulting Firm, they work hand in hand on these types of projects.
And I asked him to do this to one, if we were going to build a station, they will help you determine here's the best location. Look in this area. It was also going to kind of help us on programming, the size of it, and all that. Would they also provide a service that shows why you need an additional? Okay, because we could ask them to add that to the study. Right?
They have their data collecting equipment is compatible to our reporting system. We've already tested that, and we can go into our data and basically every question.
Who came up with the cost on this? Who did the design work of that?
Off of the current building rate for square foot, we haven't had honestly
comes down to cost per square foot, and you have seen, I know there was a couple stations built recently, so those numbers are pretty accurate.
$150 to $700 square foot.
And whether we need 3 bays or 4 bays, that gentleman, that group could tell us what they recommend.
I'm flying out Sunday to St. Louisville Fire Station Design Conference to gather more information. This is new territory for me as well. I expect fire trucks for building fire stations. It doesn't happen a whole lot. So this is new to me. I'm going to get it.
How fast do you think we could get that information back from that group?
But how
If you give
fast
me the thumbs up, I'll call them in the morning.
to get a proposal, but I wonder how long it would take them to do the full study. I doubt it's going to be before June
12.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the problem with this project is such an outsized impact on the capital budget. Doing it or not doing it kind of trickles down to everything else.
Is it a worthwhile endeavor to pursue that North Volunteer Station if they're having trouble staffing their trucks? I mean, to me, that doesn't bode well for their future as a viable fire unit. Can we pursue maybe something with them or make an overture? Because if we could capture a standing building, that might help us out.
I feel like that would significantly.
Very touchy subject at the moment with the county. Just watching and listening, but I haven't really communicated.
Now, who at the county oversees this? If this is a volunteer fire department, is it the county's station? Is it their facility?
The community fire department, I have the building director, the county is funding based off the taxes. Everything includes fire, everything includes funding there as well, throughout the whole fund.
With the reform, does that open the door to the opportunity for us to actually potentially bid on it or take it over? I don't know how that works.
I would think so, yes. In the South Carolina UTJ area, they
Well,
were required to keep that out.
who has oversight? Is it county commissioners? Do they have the oversight on this?
I spoke to Commissioner Worley last week. They have a fire commission that is looking into this at the fire board.
Okay. All right. Well, I've pressed you long enough, I think, on this issue as far as I can. I would like to talk about this greenway because that's another large ticket item.
Which one there, the rail trail or the
Abbey
Abbey Creek?
Creek, got 750,000.
Jared, if you want to just show an example, put the public safety station back on, leave everything, and just turn off Abbey Creek, and you can see what it does. And if there's another big one that you're wanting at the same time, we could do those too. But you'll see that.
Let's just leave that alone. Oh, well, I guess we need it.
Property tax rate, we can put it at 46 or and a half, or the 47 and a half had the perfect bar doing everything. 46 and a half, you're okay for 3 or 4 years. Do you want to do that? 46 and a half? Just for this scenario?
Just for the scenario,
Sure.
and then once we figure out what projects, if any, that we want to remove or add, then we can adjust accordingly.
So 46 and a half. Try to remember what it was. Turning this off, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
When you go back,
And that's not debt, right? That's pay as you go because
pay as you go.
we can't
And
get.
if
Well,
you
you know.
want to look in your handout at page 46 and a half.
I don't think I go to 46.
17.
Page 17. So page 17
Oh, sorry.
has the Abbey Creek Greenway turned on. Basically, it's this exact same thing. This one is no Abbey Creek, this is Abbey Creek. And the impact of it, oh, wait a minute, Jared, you did change the 3%. Yeah, just leave it. I don't know what would be better, whether just leave it at 5.
Honestly, I'd say keep it at the 3%. I mean,
I agree,
this needs to be
but I'm
with the
saying
council's
for the sake
decision.
of comparison to,
Oh.
it'll ultimately be the same.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Okay.
This is everything the same except for Abbey Creek and off. There you have it.
And then compare.
Your packet is turned on, Abbey Creek is turned off.
And the fire station is turned back on, right?
And that's with the 5%, Jared?
This is with 5%.
That is a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And if you want to, now that you've seen that, we'll be glad to turn another one.
So, yeah, let's do this. Can we turn on the Abbey Creek and then turn off the Belmont Rail Trail?
And we can always go back to that, and put that 3% on that salary thing, anytime you're ready. If you don't want to worry about the comparison. You want me to do that? Yeah, might as well, because it sounds like there was consensus on the growth rate, the salary.
I mean, is there a consensus?
I'm comfortable.
I'm
with
very
that.
comfortable with it.
Yeah.
At 3%?
Yeah.
Because I think it will actually help us plan this out for future,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Yeah.
just immediate.
Yeah, because you don't want to overstate that if it's not
I
something that's likely to happen
Yep.
anyway.
So that is Belmont Rail Trail turned off, 3% established in 2028 going forward. That's what
Yeah, I think that's right.
And that is with the Abbey Creek turned on?
Abbey Creek turned on, Belmont Rail Trail turned off. I can turn them both off.
But I know we're doing this as an exercise, but I would caution the council to think about the Greenway. We're requiring the Morris group to do this part, and we're going to have a Greenway to nowhere and that kind of stuff, and we are behind in that. And I know it's a quality of life issue, but we're behind Brandlow with all the stuff, and Lowell and Mount Holly with regard to that. So if we're looking at, if we want to be in the forefront, we're way behind.
What is this, Jared? Sorry. This is Abbey Creek on, Rail Trail off?
Correct.
And then 3% in future years?
3% from, again, 3% from 2028 forward. So you've got 5% taken in the next 3 years. Following this budget year. And states it would be as well, but the one that clause rate.
Yeah.
And close the rest of the month.
No, that's fine. And then sorry, this sounds redundant. Can you go back to the CIP, or the dashboard? And then can you now reverse it again and go back to that turn off Abbey Creek and then turn on Rail Trail?
Charlie.
Yes, please. I think, just to kind of start the conversation, maybe, I think we pick one and then take another one off.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say in the budget that I had worked up, I had one funded.
I can agree with that.
Because this changes the landscape substantially for us trying to plan out what do we do with the tax rate and potentially funding other projects that may be more prudent.
I agree. I mean, just at a high level, I'll say I'm not subject to more information, which I'm not sure whether we're going to get. I'm not comfortable with removing the North Belmont Public Safety Station. However, I am comfortable having, saying we'll do one greenway, not two. I think that does have a substantial impact, and I'm more comfortable with that than I would be with the fire station.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at this, and I see some of the projects that are not included here. Belmont's a very walkable community. I have nothing against these greenways, but if I measure them against what's needed on Julia Avenue, Nixon Road, Reed Park restroom, fire department heavy rescue vehicle, I'm going to peg those a little bit higher than a greenway. I see they're not included. But that's a collective call we're going to have to make.
Martha?
Well, obviously, I'm gonna be in favor of greenways for both, because I think you're still looking at a situation now with this year, with that trail, the emphasis and
trail.
stuff, you're getting grants and that kind of thing. So if we lose that opportunity, we're looking at a much more substantial impact to the budget at some point, because I think eventually we're going to need to do that. So obviously we want all of it, but I'm not going to be, I'm going to be the minority, but I don't think we should lose either of the greenways at this point.
I mean, for me, it just cooks down to what do we need, what do we want, and how much are we going to tax the citizens to achieve that goal? I mean, it's pretty simple, but for me, that's where I'm coming from.
Well, the other side of it too is that if you take it out now, it doesn't mean that you can't put it in 5
Kevin,
or 10 years or something.
To that, we can adjust the budget anytime during the year that we want to, right? We can do budget amendments. We might be able to move projects in and out of the CIP. We only have this opportunity to set the tax rate.
Yes.
Okay. So we do have some latitude.
And the rail trail that's in there, there's enough money included to do the project. You just don't see it on here. It went way past 2029 because I had to say putting back money each year. You can see it keeps going for how many years, then it equals the amount of money Tiffany said it cost. However, I just realized that it has to be completed. I didn't realize it was by 2029. It has to be completed by 2029.
Oh,
Rail
so
trail.
we would need to move a lot of that money that goes into the 2030 something.
Well, do we have any updates, Martha, on the discussions with the property owner?
Yeah.
Because if that, is not feasible, then that makes it.
Yeah,
kind of easy
I
to-
reported on that earlier, that I think
Well,
they're amenable to negotiating. The next piece of it, though, would be that we would have to have the company, approach them and see what the value would be and how they work that out. So yeah, that's not the other piece of the rail trail part of it, though, too, is, and of course, I worked with Gastonia County with regard to this too. If we don't do the rail trail part of it and you're widening I-85, then we're missing that opportunity, because if you have all that in place, they will take care of it, improve, or work with you on that. If we try to add it later, it's going to be cost prohibitive. So that's, I don't want to lose either, but if you're going to lose something, you don't want to lose the rail trail because of all the whole piece, how all that's going to go together with the I-85 part.
So it would be 2.6 million is coming.
The current estimate for construction of the rail trail is $2.6 million. If you remember the last time, we did apply to see if there was additional CMAQ funding to cover some of that, but we don't have any additional CMAQ secured today for construction. We do have CMAQ money secured for design and right-of-way, and that's what we had discussed at one of our previous meetings, that cost about $380,000 local grant. And if you guys do want to move forward with that project, we would be preparing the budget amendment to be reflective of that local grant, which is CMAQ, for your consideration for design and right-of-way. We still need money to fund construction by 2020. That construction was phase one. If we accept the CMAQ funds and start utilizing CMAQ funds for construction, it's federal money that needs to be utilized within 10 years of our initial CMAQ award, which started in 2019. Is that the phase one? That is for the rail trail. For the CMAQ total rail trail. So that award of annual issuance when they're doing the construction.
So we need to add $2.6 million, Jared, to be spent by 2029 for rail trail. So you could delete those and then just put 2.6 million in 2029. Just for the sake of this, it's the same whether we're splitting it up over the next 3 years or not. And
Martha,
show it for,
to get to the Abbey on that rail trail, are they going to use?
It's going to show you the true impact. If you have to have it spent by 2029, and financing, I'm assuming, that's out of the table. Off the table, really, isn't it?
I'm not really sure.
I don't think I don't know that you can finance. You may be able to find lender.
What would be the collateral?
that.
Our goodwill.
Oh, well, God.
What?
I've been doing some
goodwill.
Faith and good credit.
Oh, it's under that letter.
The only collateral, I guess, is things like we'd have the Ford, so we have to
You can hawk the Ford Center.
City Hall and building down there.
Well, if I show up one morning and the locks
guys,
have changed, I'm going to be worried.
from a realistic approach, I mean, I think we have, it sounds like opportunities to secure additional funding, but that's not guaranteed. So we're going to be cash out the door realistically of $2.9 million by 2029.
Yes, because like she said, there's a chance we could get some more CMAQ funding, but we can't make that assumption.
Everybody applies for the CMAQ, though. I mean, it's very competitive. I mean, at least when I was on the NPO, it seemed like it was.
Dude, this is probably a pretty good, probably since we're so deep, you may be more likely to get it.
I believe we have a good chance, although we don't really have a CMAQ funding is going to be available here, and how many municipalities will be competing against in that year for additional funds. So the way that I sort of try to timeline that out is allowing us to have 2 different CMAQ grant cycle applications in order to try to secure additional funding through that method. And then also, of course, we have some local grant opportunities that are not nearly as significant in value as CMAQ, but if we bid them directly before, we would see all grant funding opportunities.
The other thing we should look at too, this would benefit the Abbey in a fairly significant way, so we maybe should approach them if you're talking about trying to get funding for the rail.
How much money are they going to have, though?
Well,
Well, they got tons of
More than
money.
us.
considering the
You got all
lease,
that gold in the Vatican.
the lease
Well,
that they would
no.
get for the hospital added to all the other things they lease, I would think they have a substantial amount of money to work with.
I think we need to make it, if we want to plan it out and figure out what we want to do to the tax rate, especially if there's any type of discussion and substantial decreases to it, I think this is definitely a key project that we need to figure out what do we do.
Yeah, well, I think Abbey Creek and this look like they're about the same price tag.
That's what I was just saying.
So, like, I guess we don't necessarily need to decide which one we're going to do at this point, but we could just decide we're going to do one of them.
Well, what are our constraints with the Abbey Creek? Do we have the similar that it has to be spent by 2029, or can that be, you know, I would assume that since there's no federal money involved, that we wouldn't be as constricted with Abbey Creek. And what do we think that total cost is up to now? So 2.9 for Rail Trail, 2.1 for Abbey Creek. Am I understanding that correctly? Mm-hmm.
1.5 should be out of pocket.
Okay.
I do want to add, in our financial statements with the original grant or project ordinance for the Abbey Creek Greenway, it does assume a $1.6 million loan. I don't know if the intent for that was to do a reimbursement resolution similar to what we did with the rec center, where we build it and make it run.
I don't know if I want to do that again.
That wasn't the plan.
That was the ordinance that was passed.
Oh, to finance it ourselves out of water and sewer?
I'm saying that
That's probably what the thought was. Yeah.
Oh, I think you're right. I think you're right.
I don't know that it was meant to be financed out of water and sewer.
not out of water.
No, it never was.
Reimbursement resolution out of general fund. So we spend down fund balance to pay for the project, and then when it's done, we get a loan to pay our fund balance back, and we finance it over the course of the project. So that's the way the ordinance reads.
How do we get a loan, hold the loan?
You're borrowing money from the fund balance to pay back the fund balance.
Just so you don't deplete it.
To yourself.
To yourself, yeah. Rob, Peter,
Well, we
good
might need
call.
to change that.
What did the numbers look like when they took out both the
We haven't done that one yet.
parkways?
We haven't done that where they took out both of them.
They took both. I'd like to see how that affects the station.
What if we took out? Don't kill us.
It's
take
okay.
out
I already
both,
proposed eliminating the fire station. I
take
think
out
you're
both
good.
greenways and have the fire station in there.
That shouldn't be there. Both greenways, neither greenway was debt service.
No, I was making sure that I left on the.
Oh, okay.
And what's the tax rate again? Didn't we say 46 and a half? Just
Is the
Can we see the little graph?
just for the heck of it, Jared, can you reduce the tax rate by? Let's do. Let's see.
Do 43 and a half.
43 and a half. Yeah.
45. That's keeps it 54.
And sorry, Jared, just one more. Can you remove the fire station and then just pick one of the rail or one of the greenways? Oh, you're fine. While he's doing that, I will, give kudos to y'all. This is a great. I know that was what Tryon that provided this, but this is a great tool.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah.
Chaz?
This is great. I appreciate y'all.
I think it's really how you're supposed to be doing budgeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn off fire station and turn off one of the rail or one of the greenways. Martha,
you be
which
the bad guy.
Martha,
Well,
which
you
one
need
do
to
you
turn
want?
off Abbey Creek because you're too
Sorry,
committed
y'all.
with the other one. So turn off Abbey Creek.
And go to our dashboard. And then can you scroll down to see the little bar graphs? Okay. Now go to 43 and a half. Go down a little bit.
You're paying for something in 29.
Yeah, what's in 29 that's depleting the cash? Oh, that's going to be the rail trail, huh?
Or is that the truck? No, main fire.
Oh,
That's
the
what
fire
it is.
station renovation.
Yeah.
And that's debt service.
Oh yeah, that should.
That shouldn't. be
Oh,
debt
no.
service.
Yeah, then what's? Yeah, it is the rail trail. Okay, it's the 20. It's the 2.6
okay.
million cash out the door.
So that actually makes sense.
Do remember as well, there's projects each year that we would keep adding, and they're not on here. So in a sense, it's like after 5 years from now, we're not doing anything else capital-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So I would look if you get past 5 years, that's, we can start throwing on these other things. And
But if it shows you building your cash balance, I mean that's the trend you want to see.
Doing that way.
Yeah.
That shows you can spend more than
Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is because we have the renovation of the new fire station in there. Additional.
Yes, your scope of the one that we had is going to get larger if you're eliminating one of the north line.
Well, I have another project I'd like to talk about.
Okay.
The I-85 betterments.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to talk about.
I am really uncomfortable spending $2.6 million on a bridge we don't own.
I agree.
I will concur that as well.
I'd rather
concur with
spend
that.
less on that. I mean, I've said, no matter how much money you spend, it's still a highway interchange. I mean, what is that, lipstick on a pig or something like that? I mean, it's a highway interchange. That's all it's ever going to be. And you say, well, that's the most beautiful highway interchange I've ever. It's still a highway interchange.
And you're passing it at 55 miles an hour.
Well, unless you're
faster
exiting.
than that, but not too fast.
I don't think we need a highway interchange to sell Belmont.
I was looking at the county's budget spends $2.9 million on the entire project for the whole county. So that was like 2.6 for one bridge for us. A little over the top.
I agree on that one.
So did you remove them?
But now, I mean, we have to do something. And are we, like, I thought our choice was like between high and medium. And, we don't have to do anything.
But you agreed to do, well, the idea was the county wanted everybody to be consistent, right? That was sort of the buy-in early on. Like we would be consistent here. So that's where they started polling, and they polled each council. And you remember that? You did.
I do remember that.
So that's where the, kind of came up with this A, B, or C. So we all agreed to pick whichever one now.
We didn't all agree.
People may be upset if you change your mind, but you haven't signed anything.
I mean,
I'm not really worried about pissing off the
Tiffany
county.
wants to
not either.
add in something here about that.
Kevin, what do you think?
I think I'm not on council and don't have to answer that question.
I'm still okay removing it.
I'm fine with that.
I'm taking it out and not paying.
The betterments.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, aren't they also going to come at us for the bridge improvements over the Catawba betterments? I mean, they were talking like $1 million.
I think we can all agree. I mean, we do spend a lot of money on niceties. I think Richard has said this a lot in the past. And, we've got some serious issues going on in Belmont, particularly with the reeval and the high tax rate. And for me, it's like really now zoning that in and taking it to heart as to what is a want and what is a need. And for this, I don't think I could argue a need for that betterment to Mark's point of what is a bridge we don't own. So.
Take a look at the ones on Catawba. You all just mentioned the Catawba one.
Yeah.
Whereas Sloan's Ferry, aesthetic enhancements. We got word that that's only $150,000 now.
Oh.
That's, I think it could be a little bit more because of landscaping. We're estimating about $15,000 after landscaping. The only other cost is paying extra for lights, the decorative lighting, which is a monthly fee. So just know that Tiffany would want me to just mention that. It is true. It's 150. I think we sort of committed to that. I'm not sure. That was committed as a reminder of $150,000 for that one, partially because of a payment through that.
Yeah.
And then the additional ones are for efficiencies and extra connected to some of our projects.
Right.
The lighting, a cost at the end of the project as well as landscaping because those immediate were designed to be landscaped for our standards.
Oh, that's good.
That's awesome.
And if you're talking about niceties, that one makes much better sense.
Yes,
The Sloan
it does.
Ferry, because people are going to be walking and biking, and with all the development just across the river, we're going to see a whole lot of those people coming back this direction. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that is
I'm
valuable.
fine. With
Yeah, that one
especially-
I have no problem
Yeah.
with.
That one's good.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with you on the highway interchange or the.
So we
Those
we
improvements.
have the betterments of the 85 turned off.
Well, it's less than $500,000 in cash annually. That allowance of that huge debt, about that percentage of it.
Right. Doesn't make a huge difference.
But it could go to something
A
else.
half a million
Yeah.
in cash every year.
I mean, that's new positions, right?
Or half a fire truck.
That's the 445,000 new positions.
It's a half of a heavy rescue vehicle.
Yeah.
How do we finance it if we don't?
I think
Or
they
is there
just make the
certain
loan.
loans
Because
for?
it's their bridge.
Yeah.
So,
It
yeah.
isn't their bridge. That's why they didn't propose anything. They just gave us the standard. It's when the county got involved. Let's make it prettier. This is our one chance, and that was the thing. Is you get one shot. You know, M&M, you get one shot. This is your chance.
Well, yeah.
Are you enjoying yourself, Miles? Are you glad you're here?
Taking it all in. Taking it all in.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's at 43 and a half.
Mm. Yeah. Did you turn the debt back on? Yeah.
Ouch. How many cents would it take to basically get to where we just were? Like, what I guess what I'm trying to get is, like, what does it
40.
cost to do the fire station?
There you go. 45.5.
Your debt service always stays below 12. Well, it's always at 3 years. That's okay.
And again, just to kind of, I know we all know this, but it wasn't as publicized, I think, as it should have been. But last year we did pass the 2 cent. So for me personally, I'm looking at this in aggregate for both 2 years, because from talking to Miles, it doesn't sound like, and Kevin, there wasn't that many municipalities that actually passed a tax decrease last year when we were trying to prepare ourselves for this. I know the county did, but
It went completely
There were
under the
2
radar.
tax increases last year. I think it wasn't Lowell. You guys tell me.
I think so.
so there were some actual increases, and we went in with a 2 cent decrease to try to soften the blow for this year.
Yeah,
I
that's-
think
agree.
I agree. I agree.
Yes.
We should have publicized it more last year, to be honest. That should have been a huge thing, because nobody knows.
I mean, I bring it up anytime anybody asks me about taxes. Like,
Yes.
by the way,
I do, and they don't know. They're like,
Yeah,
"Oh, did
I
you?"
know.
I was like, "Yeah, we did."
A lot of people don't notice their tax bill.
Yeah.
That's true.
except this year apparently.
Yeah. Let's,
Well, but all they've seen is the rebound.
That's true. Yeah.
So what is this? Sorry, Jared, on the here.
Yeah, so this is I-85 turn off. The Osage station is on, I-85 is off, Addie Creek Greenway is off, rail trail is on.
Okay.
That also, we did the 3% starting in 2028, going forward. At 45.5 cents tax.
Well, let me ask council this. I mean, did they come with any preconceived notions of where they would like to see our tax rate?
I've had several people explain to me that they would like to see it below 5 cents. They heard that we were only considering cutting 5 cents, and we're not very happy about that. So that's the feedback I've gotten so far. Which is why I've been kind of going as aggressively through this as I have been, because I wanted to see, like, oh, okay, like, what would that mean in terms of, actual dollars and cents? So, which is why I really like this tool, because it enables us to kind of make those decisions, and actually kind of like play out with or model out the choices.
But I didn't come with preconceived notions, but I think that we are definitely going to have to publicize and push it that this was, you already did one and now you're adding to it, as opposed to this is a brand new something, because people did not pay any attention to the one last year.
What, again, just throwing out there, what about the ball field lights of $2 million?
Oh yeah, that was another one that I had modified. So, given the uncertainty around the future of Frady Field, I didn't think it made a whole lot of sense to invest $500,000 in ball lights out there. Well, yeah, because there's 5 of them, right? 5, 4.
4 in there because we've got financing $2 million.
Okay. The other one that I had. Well, the other one that I cut was Reed, because I think we'd also talked about maybe looking at reprogramming that park. Possibly, since it sounds like using it for baseball has gotten difficult.
And just to validate that, Zip, we don't currently really program it for baseball. Okay. And that's the residents complaining about that part.
All right, in the parking, those complaints are centered around parking. All right, so not having these, and if we've got a need, it's for baseball fields. I mean, that's my understanding. So does it make more sense to attack Reed Park from trying to increase the parking rather than eliminating? Because if we take baseball from here, that we can't have it here, the teams are going up and the players are going up, means we have to put it someplace else. So either expand a field, create a field, or cut our team play. I mean,
Yes. What? Not to sort of change the subject a little bit, but the fields themselves, like the infields, like how much would it cost to? I understand that most of them are gravel. How much would it cost to have dirt infields?
There's a lot more maintenance to dirt.
Well, I realize that, but it's like, most people play baseball on dirt. not gravel.
Sliding in the third and
Yes.
gravel's problematic.
I will say that my son really likes to make those big piles when he's out there, you know, manning the bases. It's perfect for that.
All right, so
7 to 12,000 for each.
So, I mean, how do we attack baseball then? I mean, the future
With a
of
bat.
Frady Field is somewhat in flux depending on what happens.
We're trying to, that's the reason I was touching the baseline, outfield with good lights, we have to get out there. We really have not only baseball, but opportunity, outfield, soccer practice. We got a need for both.
Well, I mean, what I'm getting at is instead of trying to attack 4 fields with new lights, does it make sense to attack 1 field and lock it down? Put the lights there.
Yeah, I think we do one field each year. The first year we provide the outfield, and the next year we do another outfield. So it's not all at once, we do one outfield, 1 year, at a time.
We were going to do them all at one time, actually.
Right.
Well, because instead of spreading them out, we did have them spread out. But when we first tried and recommended, they said, try to get more debt service or as option, packaged and do them, and that way you can go with debt service.
Yeah, and that way you can spread the cost out. Yeah.
So we could easily just, we would think we might do 3 parts, right?
That's what I was proposing. I mean,
So take this down to 1.5 million of debt service.
I mean, does that give us a better, with that whatever vendor it seemed like for the rallying cost equipment, we might get a better deal? If we're,
I'm not sure if there's a break on that.
So which parks would we do?
it would be
Rodden.
Rodden, Stowe,
And Davis?
and Davis.
Okay.
So
Wait, where's the ball field in Stowe?
Well, not Stowe, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know why it says Stowe.
Belmont Central.
Belmont Central. It's like, thinking of that, I was like, there's no ball field in Stowe.
You haven't seen the baseball field and stuff?
You know,
It doesn't change much, probably. It's debt services.
Yeah, in 2029, I noticed that we're a little bit closer to that 50% target. We're at like 48% prior. That's just due to the additional debt service coming back into that cap.
So, and some of the things that Zip mentioned and Councilman Turner was talking about, those aren't included in your future capital. Just keep remembering that there's other projects that aren't on this list. This isn't all included. So when you go in 5 years from now and start adding those projects, it's gonna affect you. Our growth may outpace it, but balance.
yeah, because we'll have another reval between now and then too. So
And
That's
we
very
let those
true.
Go down, remember? Because
Yeah.
This was peak of market. In 2008, when we did 7, we did the reval. It went down on us in Gaston County, and we scrambled a little bit.
We scrambled a lot here. Because we had actually preceding that, they cut the tax rate 2 cents.
Yes.
That's at 45.
Mayor wants it 43.5.
Well,
well, I mean, keep coming back to the fire station, but like, I mean, that's having the largest.
So Jared, let's just, Chief, we're just playing around right now. Can you take off the fire station? Oh no, you're fine.
A little bit. Fire station's like a roof. Everybody loves laying up under it, but they don't like it.
That's fair.
Will the firefighters like laying up underneath it?
That's a difference.
Well, a firefighter appreciates a good roof too.
See, it just. So now we need to, honestly, with this, I'm almost curious to Richard's point about a budget amendment because we don't know how much the state's going to give. I mean, what if they come in and they give half of this? I mean, this changes the scenario. And Donnie and Brad did put this as the #1 priority for the city of Belmont for funding. So I don't know what.
Yeah, I mean, I have no objection doing it if we get a nice fat check from the state that covers all or most of the cost, or even half the cost.
But if we're talking about what the tax rate is or is not going to be, if you're going to sell it to me as a taxpayer, a fire station is going to impress me because I want you to take care of all these people and that kind of thing. So that, taking that out, I think makes me concerned, because I'd rather have the tax rate be reasonable and do the fire station as opposed to lowering it almost unnecessarily, maybe, to make everything look nice. I don't think it's the best choice, even though obviously I'm the fire station person because my dad was involved in that, but I still think if you're telling me you're going to spend $6 or $7 million on a fire station, you've got growth here and all this kind of thing, as a taxpayer, I'm going to see that as being important.
But the only thing, I completely agree, but we are at a very, very, Chief, you correct me wherever I'm misstating, but we are at a very good ISO rating. And does that not incorporate our response times across the community?
The response times play a role in the fire suppression, not the medical.
Okay.
Just suppression. That's all they look at. That 7 minute response time is not good.
I don't know. I agree with most of what Martha said, except for maybe the unnecessarily. But I just I don't
the
think
thing with the ISO is like, so that's going to flow through to your homeowners' rates, but like, it's a question of like, well, okay, well, how much more does going from, one level to the next really going to push that down? And then if like the flip side of that is like, oh, okay, well, I'm paying more taxes to have this extra fire station, so I can push down, my homeowner's premium.
It's not going to make a huge difference in
Yeah.
premium.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at.
It's none. It's all in the industrial side of
Right.
it. So for like the warehouses, we'll see a cost benefit from it as opposed to like residential.
I'm less concerned about
I agree.
ratings and stuff. I'm concerned about if there's a fire, or if there's an emergency, are they going to get there? And, whether it's a 3 or a 2 or a what, if somebody has an emergency, are they going to get there in a sufficient amount of time?
Sorry, Jim, but is the concern is the medical side of it, not the fire side of it? All of it.
Fire, we respond to those things universal. That's huge. We respond to those problems.
Right.
I mean, I feel like there's a benefit to having a unit stood up within the fire department that handles medical calls, because like I gotta imagine it's pretty expensive to send those trucks out to respond to like, people having chest pain or whatever.
Plus, it makes us vulnerable if we have a fire.
Yeah. But how likely is it that we would actually grow beyond those boundaries? Because, like, those are at the very edge of our jurisdiction.
There's land that the church, the diocese owns right by Dixon Village that could potentially, am I remembering correctly?
But
There is, but is it in the city?
it'd have to be
I thought that was like Mount Holly or something.
No.
Well, I agree with Martha. I mean, for me, I would always err on the side of public safety. Okay. I mean, I can make a case that we need that fire station. I mean, for me, the flip side of the coin is we want 2 parkways, two trails. I mean, at some point, a choice, again, to me, it's needs, wants, desires. I mean, we seem to say that we need this. Okay. If we need it, we fund it. I mean, how badly do we need walking trails? I mean, Marie loves to walk. I'll walk with her. If I want to walk, I open my door and I head down the steps and I walk. it drives me crazy when she wants to drive to Reflection Point to walk. I'm like, why are we driving to a point to walk when we can just go out our door?
Literally going to the
Well,
point.
part of this is connectivity, though, not just the walking part, because you're trying to get people away from the automobiles, all this kind of thing. So I don't want to get into the weeds on this part of it. I still think, the public safety piece trumps it, but I don't think we need to discount the other part either.
Chief Falls.
One thing to think about, I think, when we're talking about response times and all of that, that's in the perfect world when this fire truck from that station is not showing up. If that fire truck's out on another wreck somewhere, then you don't have that little Belmont fire station, what's your response time to it? Even from a standpoint of having other agencies help you, other fire agencies. So that's in a perfect world talking about response times. And then if you go on averages after that truck, then you have a fire truck coming from all the way down off South Point Road if you stay in the house with our stuff. That's something that we're running into a lot with the peninsula, the growth in the peninsula. If I have an officer or two officers tied up at a call somewhere, and I have a North Belmont, which is one car coming to the peninsula at McLean, we're talking about 15, 20 to 25 minutes on response time, not even taking into consideration the lag time between dispatch and time the call came in and then you got dispatch and then sent. So, and we've already had people in the South Peninsula area asking for our response times and all that. So I don't know at what point that was going to be relevant, but because of development. But if that fire truck's tied up, then your response time to North Belmont to get to what some of the places you talked about are going to be tremendously extended.
Let me see. We're part of the unified dispatch, right? Gaston County. Okay, police and fire, which means there's a guy looking at the screen. If I understand it correctly, everything has a beacon on it, and he's looking and seeing where everybody is. That's how he makes the decision. Belmont's tied up here. I need to roll Mount Holly to this call. I mean, is that correct? Okay. So how does that impact this scenario? I mean, what you're saying, I understand. But if we have this omnipresent person looking at the screen making those decisions for us, if our fire truck is tied up, I mean, they'll know that. I mean, I'm sure y'all, not only does he see that beacon, but he's communicating with y'all. We're going to be on site for an hour. Yes, roll somebody else.
If we will hear that call, we will go ahead and have him, we will tell him notify the station.
Okay. So I mean, effectively, they're not going to let a house burn down. They're going to roll a unit because we're interlocal and we're all in the unified dispatch.
I changed the user way when I took office. I used the user way back up in the city firefighters cannot fire through the house on fire. We've got to have two air balls and firemen speak to the point where those numbers are almost here. And I'll let you all know what the house was on like one time when some neighbor person's house was on fire, and because of where it was at, dispatch the community fire department when they were at the old location on Woodlawn, and the person actually put from their house was on fire, and to the fire station to tell them that their house was on fire. So that happened.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, actually drove down here with a miscommunication in dispatch, and their house was literally on fire, and they were wondering why the fire company was coming because the fire company was
Wow.
Where does that leave us?
Well, I mean, for me, and I don't know if there's anything you all want, I was fine with everything, turning back on the fire station and being at 45.5, wasn't it? I was comfortable with that. If there's other areas that, I mean, I'm certainly happy to explore other means of reducing it further, but I'm not comfortable nixing the fire station to do that.
Is that the scenario I'm trying to remember? Does that include the Green Wings?
Only one. I think it's the scenario I thought we said was that had 45.5 being pretty good and consistent with our fund balance and everything, was turning on fire station turning off Abbey Creek, leaving on Rail Trail, turning off I-85 betterments. Am I forgetting anything?
Maybe just run through the CIP once again. Should we-
Turn the public safety station back on.
And we also reduced the.
Oh yeah, we reduced the ball fields. All right, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
You wanted the fire station on.
Yes.
Turn the station on. What if, in this scenario, we remove, and this is open, like I want to hear your thoughts. We take out or maybe limit our scope on the renovation project of the current fire station.
Is that even included in?
Yeah, that's
It is.
Oh, it is.
It's 2.2 million.
We don't know how much that is. I'm not sure where that came from.
What did you say? Limit the scope?
Limit the scope or remove it?
If we're
I mean,
going to
we're
build
building
it.
a brand new fire station.
If we're gonna build a brand new building, like I understand that it's an old building and it needs some work, but like
2.2. Well, I guess
Yeah.
we don't know.
They need, definitely something needs to happen over there, for sure, because of just the living circumstances. When you go over there and take a tour. I don't know how much it's gonna cost to do it. I would leave $1 million, some number in there.
But like if
what
we
is
were to,
critical? What is critical? No, for renovations for this Keener.
That could be done in, when we do that, and we put that in a second story, we'll probably have to put an elevator in there, we go and permit, cosmetic upgrade, I think it'd be feasible, if you use the Belmont State, if not.
I'm sorry. Did you say you got to put an elevator in when we renovate?
Two-story building. We pull a permit, we model.
is it currently 2 stories?
You don't have much land.
Oh.
The idea is that's where you have to grow because of you need parking still. You can't use the parking because they have to swing the trucks.
Right.
You have a little bit, we don't even know if we can acquire that piece over there. So the idea, more likely you just put the living up top and you put that big pole right in the middle and they slide down there.
He really wants that pole. You just want to ride it.
No, Raleigh's Central Fire Station has a pole like that. Yeah.
Actually coming back to that second.
But if we touch that building, we're talking about code upgrades and elevators and everything else.
What this doesn't include, though, Kevin, does it? The future acquisition of the South Point Fire Station.
It will be ours, Jared, and
2 years, 1 year.
Yeah.
We've already paid for it.
Okay.
but I don't even know.
That station is, of course, it's a lot more recent, however, it's still a little behind decontamination, but I think we can work around that. It'd be beneficial for the firefighter.
Abbey Creek, I-85's gone. What else, Jared? Abbey Creek, I-85.
And we took off I-5, we took off Abbey Creek Greenway, and we lowered the ball field lights by $500,000.
At 45.
And that's carrying 3% forward too.
And correct. And with that 3% increase in salaries. The railroad line in a good spot. That's what we
kept the fire station, removed Abbey Creek, removed the betterments to 85, and reduced the amount towards the light poles or light bulbs in the park.
Oh, that's it? Okay.
We were still toying on the fire department. And tax rate 45.5, which is 4% reduction, which is effectively 6 if we include the aggregate from last year.
Correct.
Here, one right now.
Was there anything else we wanted to look at? Maybe quality of life? Anything else catch your eye there?
Did you guys? I know we talked about the resurfacing program. Was that? How do we have that in here?
Jared, I think it still may be 200. It cancels it for this upcoming year, so doing nothing.
Right.
And then doing 2. Where'd it go, Jared? Went back. No, 26, 27. There they are. So it's still doing like 255. It's hard to do sometimes much less than that when you get them in here. And the thing was with that, it was, and Jerry, we did our 10-year, but that doesn't mean we don't do anything until 10 more, we did our 5-year. That means we don't just do nothing for
Right.
5 years. So typically, the city has been spending and doing another smaller paving package each year.
Mm-hmm.
And you do have some offset from that from your PAL bill. And you're already assuming that PAL bill revenue.
Yeah.
So really, that right there, you've got revenue that's offsetting that. That's not
Okay.
really coming from that.
Okay.
46 and a half, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so the background on this was that we did the $1 million paving program where we took out the loan, and the idea was to pay that back with PAL bill funds coming in. So we had talked about so how do we account for the payments that we're using from PAL bill for the loan payment, and then, do we use the balance for ongoing maintenance, or how does that all work? So that was kind of like what we went back, because I had toyed around with these, cutting down the actual spend on the street improvements to account for the loan payments that we were making from the appropriations we were getting. But it sounds like we're accounting for that already, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you something, and this might be to Jerry. We've done, 2 of these now, 2 $1 million loans? Is that right? Okay, so we started out knocking out the worst streets, which I can't remember what that grade was. But, with the goal of getting to a point to where, maybe we could have stepped this program back. At what point are we going to be good? Meaning we've taken care of the streets that really require attention, and now we're at a plateau to where maybe we don't need to.
I don't think ever, right?
Because remember that when it did that curve, and you're doing good. Well, streets fall off very fast. That's why they said put your money into it before they get to that point.
Yeah.
Because if not, it's moving so quickly, you can really almost never stay on top of it with the cowbell money that you're getting.
Because to Kevin's point, that was the big fear we discussed, is if we do pull back from this or neglect certain stuff, we're going to get hit with a huge sticker price later down the road, and then we'll be in a similar situation. Like the fire department here is like, well, do we do the roads or what? So I thought we had all kind of aligned to kind of keep it where it was.
No, yeah, that's fine. I was kind of thinking about our discussion on the South Fork Parkway. It seemed like I was hearing that these roads would have a life of 15 or 20 years because there were some concerns when they dropped the speed limit that the DOT was going to put those roads in our lap. And it wasn't a concern because the surfacing was going to last 15 to 20 years.
Well, the roads are built to different standards.
Sure.
So that one's going to be built a little different than some of the other ones that were just kind of topic resurfacing. So, and then the use of it is going to matter a lot. How often it's used.
Okay.
Depends on when it gets degraded and how often it gets repaired. We've got to do study. You can't continually stop it.
Well, yeah.
We had the study, it was done again last year, so we can get you, I don't know if you have a copy or not, do you all have a copy of that? Where it does the ranking, the PC,
PCI.
On my bookshelf.
So we can have that done, so you can take a look at
Yeah.
it again if you'd like, to see kind of where we are. And they have recommendations of what we need to be doing that were in there. The crack sealing was one, which we haven't done.
There are some like alternatives they propose that help your roads last longer instead of just overlaying, doing rejuvenation, stuff we have not done historically. I'm not saying we need to do them, but there are options they provide that help your roads have a longer lifespan.
Just like your driveway, when you put that black sealer on top, there is a product that they recommended that you can put down on the street that can make it last longer. I think it's some binder.
I mean, if it's not feasible, it's not feasible. Not to be trying to be funny, but if we can't get any more mileage out of the roads, then we are where we are. It's just a recurring cost.
I do have two things as well. So we talked about this at a workshop or a council retreat, and me and Barry actually talked about this. I just haven't heard an update on it, obviously, with the transition. But he said this was doable in regards to pay to park in our downtown area, excluding residents. So free to the residents. There's a couple of municipalities that have this today. Oak Island and I believe Huntersville was the other
Hendersonville.
one. Hendersonville is the other one we talked about, where we issue a pass or residents come get their pass, and then outsiders who are coming in for the tourism are paying to park. Kind of leading into the road and repaving surface, take that revenue and dedicate it to some of our resurfacing or dedicate it to whatever. So
yeah, I mean, you take the money from your parking program and plow it into more parking.
Yeah. So Barry said that was doable. I think that's something, I had it on my notes, but when we go through all this stuff, and it also opens up another revenue stream for us potentially. So
do those cities, I'm curious, do those cities have like a dedicated staff person that handles making sure that information accurate, like a billing person?
I wouldn't know. That's why I asked staff to.
You may have a staffing cost to that.
Right, but something to look into.
Somebody's gonna have to manage that. Who else moves that town? You're gonna be marking stuff.
Yeah, we'll get you a little stick with some chalk.
I mean, again, I know we want to see if there's majority, but I think that's something we should seriously consider. So,
well, I mean, one thing that we can definitely apply that to, we do this Chronicle Street parking. We charge for parking there, in and out.
Yeah.
I mean, do you all agree with?
I'm happy to explore it. I think it's a potential dormant commerce clause violation, but I'm happy to
Barry
explore
did
it.
not think so, Jim. So.
Hey, it's working in these other towns. Don't complicate this.
I know.
Right.
To look at it, to explore it,
Yeah. And I think that we should try to get that in to us because, again, this goes directly to budget. We might not have it before the budget where we got to pass something, but have it on the table. The other thing that I wanted to mention, again, I apologize if this is redundant because I wasn't at the table when this deal was signed, but is there any way to renegotiate our deal with the Charlotte Water Facilities of the $16.9 million that we're going to have to pay in year 2026 for that line that's going to be ran up underneath the Catawba River? We are giving them our nutrient allocations, which they absolutely need in order to even proceed with this project. I feel like we could have probably, and again, I wasn't at the table, I don't know what the discussion was, but I think we could have probably gotten that negotiated down a little bit more.
Well,
we're too late?
We'd be just like Waste Pro was when they came and, we made a bad deal, can we change it? They're under no obligation to do that. It's a pre-existing duty rule.
Do we know if it's $100 million?
When this first came up, though, the argument was the fear of spending between $15 and $17 million to retrofit our plant and bring it up to specs. And that was going to be, it was more than we wanted to spend, but I mean, hindsight's 20/20. Lo and behold, you know, we're in the same pickle we were in.
Kevin, I know this is in the wastewater.
Well, I mean, it's worth, and I would explore it. I mean, there were going to be associated fines and penalties a year or two ago from withdrawing from that agreement, but it was nowhere near $15 million.
17.
Did you get that?
17.
That 16 means there's a not to exceed number. We're trying to rack our brains.
It's in the file that you shared with me today. $16.9 million for pump station and force main to Charlotte water facilities. It's in the water and sewer fund, but it's down here on the CIP.
Well, I think we're asking the wrong person, the engineer, assistant city manager, if there's a pathway to extricate ourselves from this at all. And I think what we need to do is lean on our legal
I
department.
was switching over to
Our legal brain trust. Is there an avenue to potentially withdraw from this?
Okay.
Yeah.
With the contingency. I could be wrong. Maybe we just double take that.
Well,
Yeah.
Miles, you have experience
Yeah.
with,
No, I
with
know,
that.
I know.
What was your
That's why I said I wanted to switch over to
take
water
on
and sewer stuff.
on this, having being ahead of where we are with what you did with Mount Holly?
Yeah, so in Mount Holly it was a long drawn out process that started way before my time in Mount Holly. It was probably 20 years in the making. There was a utilities committee that was formed by council, members of staff, citizens. That kind of went through the process to figure out whether they would want to go to Charlotte Water or do the renovations at the Mount Holly plant. And probably 5-6 years ago, the estimate was $40 million to renovate the plant, and we knew that at that time that future years it'd probably be $100 million, just like Mr. Hatton's talking about now. So Mount Holly went ahead and went with Charlotte Water for their agreement. As far as where Belmont stands, I don't know if the agreement has been signed, what kind of implications legally would be implicated if we try to remove ourselves at this time. I just need to get caught up to speed. I'll talk to Jerry at that point and Mr. Wilson as well, that we could bring something back to have a further discussion, but I just don't have enough information.
Now, from Mount Holly's perspective, and I understand that it might be apples to oranges, but was Mount Holly satisfied with the arrangement? Were they was there ever talk in Mount Holly of extricating themselves from the arrangement?
No, not that I was aware of. As far as like pulling back, once they signed the agreement, then they went forward with an SRF loan as well, and have 2 pipes underneath the river at this time, and currently building the pump station. Now, I know there's some discussions, internal of like the nutrient allocation piece of it and how that's passed back down to businesses and citizens, and also the capacity at which the city can grow. Still, I mean, that's all related to discharge limits and the nutrition limits there. But as far as like pulling back, I don't think that was ever necessarily discussed in Mount Holly.
But they are apples to oranges, because the way I understood it is that the Mount Holly's waste treatment facility was in dire need of, like, it wasn't even working or isn't working properly, correct?
Yes, they had deferred maintenance on it just because they knew that the Charlotte Water agreement was coming up. Plus, they had one basin area to fail, so a wall fell in, and so that was going to be millions of dollars to fix the wall, plus remove the sludge so they could fix the wall. So that's still that basin's out of service right now. So that they deferred maintenance on it just because they knew the Charlotte Water agreement was up and coming. Correct.
I mean,
To give some context of Charlotte Water, I mean, they are actively right now sending people to the plant for their engineering work. They are actively doing geolocation surveys. They're actively doing public information campaigns. They're actively do engineering design on the facility, just so you all know they are actively engaged in that work.
And just to clarify, again, I was switching gears to the water and sewer fund. This doesn't correlate with what the current tax rate is, but this is one that I had commented on my notes to discuss since we were at the budgets talking, so just as an FYI.
I'm just having a hard time paying, well, I mean, Parks can look at the contract, but paying damages likely to get out of the contract only to pay much more to do it ourselves to our own plant. I don't understand what the benefit is.
Jim, I'm not saying that. I think we just look and see what our options are.
I think when we looked at it some years prior, Mount Holly was falling behind because they were not as interested as we were, and then they found out they were in a more difficult situation. So I think that we looked at all the pieces of this at that time and determined that it was just not financially feasible for us to upgrade and continue to do that. So I'm certainly, anybody can look at it, but there was a lot of discussion before we put ourselves into this situation.
All right, so with that, where were we, 45 something?
45 and a half. That's no greenway, no I-defined betterment, and reducing the ball field lights, $500,000 to only do 3 fields. If there's and then includes the fire station. If there's any of those other little ones that you're wanting to talk about, it's not gonna make much of a difference at this point like this. Unless you're going for something much larger. It's been $500,000 or more.
All right.
Well, there's no,
Well, I mean,
it's
for
a
me,
workshop. It's nothing to approve.
I will have more clarity once we hear back from our legislators. Also, whenever this public safety committee from the county level has their direction, if it opens the door to that north station that exists already or closes it. I mean, those are 2 options on the table that might help us out.
What do you think the timeline is on that, Chief?
Anything else, or are we?
Did you talk about the Parks and Rec Center opening before I came or not?
No, we
need to talk about that for a minute.
Well,
can we do the 24th of June or July 8th as 2 possibilities or not? Okay, because what I had talked to Richard a bit about, and I don't think I talked to you guys, if we're going to change it, which we obviously are, Laura and Jamie have been negotiating with vendors, so we need to give them, I think, both of those options to see if you can renegotiate with vendors to come on either the 24th or the 8th and get back to us on which seems more feasible. What? Okay.
What vendors would these be?
Yeah, the
and
problem
do what?
is, see, this is the time of year that they are very busy with all the festivals and stuff, so we've locked them in, and now we have to change what we're doing. One other thing that you need to say what you want to do, the group had discussed possibly having a VIP event on Friday night from 5 to 7 before we did the major thing on Saturday, so it's totally up to you as far as what's your idea about that.
I personally struggle with the VIP event.
That's fine. In other words, we just need to know. So we
Yeah,
just go with the main thing on Saturday. Everybody's good with that then?
It's fine with me.
Okay. All right.
Which one?
Thanks.
I'm sorry.
Just on the Saturday, not do a Friday thing. That's fine. We just need to know from you guys what you want to do.
The only parameters that I would put around it is that we have our rate structures in place, we're fully staffed, and that we've got our CO, the contractor has said this building is ready to go. I mean, once we've met that criteria, I don't have any issue with any date you pick.
Oh, and one thing we had discussed as a group is that we were not going to look at doing rentals of this facility till fall after everything was kind of ironed out and smoothed out, because we are not sure how all those pieces are going to play out.
Now,
That's fine.
did we, again, not off topic, but it is on topic, did we iron out the whole operations plan that didn't we schedule to hear back from today on regards to how we're going to be staffing, what the plan is? Because we talked about it at the last council meeting.
I think that was the next agenda item.
that's the
once we
next
got to
Okay,
the budget.
perfect.
So, I mean, are there any other budgetary discussion
Oh, there it
points?
is.
So are we giving you a final number? Is that what you're looking for today on the tax rate?
That's all we need. That's all we need. And then, you know, if there's any differences on what has been presented tonight, as far as staffing or any of that, let us know now. But if not, we can build the budget around 46.5, or 45.5.
45.
based on the
Right, yeah, well, June 12th. Yes, yeah, so, we would approve it at the regular meeting, which is June 12th. Yes. And staffing, any positions, are we all good with positions? How do we feel about that? I mean, let's all speak now or forever hold our peace, like I will be.
And they're all built in.
yeah.
This is what we just showed you.
Yes.
All those positions are already built in to what was presented right there.
Oh, I remember you calling out planning and zoning operational costs and suggesting that we might want to hear more about that.
Sure, if you want to.
I would love to hear more about that.
Some of those costs and those external consultant costs are contributing to that increase from a budgetary perspective.
Okay.
Those are not anticipated to continue year over year. Those are just anticipated to happen.
Okay.
All right, subject to the further information that's been requested that may or may not be available by June 12th, right? Yeah. All right.
So heads are nodding at 45.5. That's all.
45.5.
I mean, personally, I'd like to go lower, but it doesn't sound like there's the appetite for that. So.
Well, I mean, I think we all would, but it's like what's feasible, you know, you can be fiscally irresponsible the other way too.
Right. No. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't think we're doing anything irresponsible here. I think
Yeah.
it's just a matter of weighting priorities.
Take this down, sure. I think we're finished.
I mean, I guess it's going to depend on
and I'm just going to throw. I mean, the thing is, you know, at the end of the day, the state, whatever they pony up for money-wise, really drastically changes the picture here for our future outlook. I mean, I think 45.5 is the more conservative approach, basically assuming the state's not going to give us anything. But if Donnie and them really push this so we get half of that, we could have gone down lower.
So what do we do if we do get some money? Like, I mean, we're going to come back next year and readjust it, or because like I wouldn't want us to get into the habit of just spending money because we have it. Like,
I
agree.
I mean, I feel like that's a message I'd be comfortable taking to people. It's like, look, this is the budget we worked up based on what we see as the needs of the city. We get some additional money from the state, from the budget, aka call your legislators.
Yeah.
Maybe we can take another look at it again next year.
Or put the projects back in that we took out to try to build.
Yeah, I mean, that's another
financially
option too.
careful, yeah.
Under a scenario where we might get some money from our legislatures, is it specifically earmarked for the construction of a new fire station? And the reason I'm asking, in a perfect storm, if we were to receive that money, and this might come available to us, this North Station, through whatever process they're looking at, are those funds then transferable, or can we reallocate them possibly to the upfits for Keener?
It'll just be determined on the strings that are attached.
Yeah.
to
It's going to depend on what they pass
how they
and
do
how
it.
it's
Is it
done.
just general, like the SCIF grant with Kathy Harrington, wouldn't put it on anything. This may be tied directly to public safety. I guess we just have to wait and see.
I think so.
The
Yeah.
reason I'm asking is because when we're talking about the greenways, we didn't tie it to a specific greenway. We just said greenways because one might be more favorable than the other. So that's why I'm asking. I mean, it specifically is tied to whatever language they prescribe to the grant. Our latitude.
It's a general number. Sometimes they can just give you an appropriation that can be used however the city determines.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
I don't
last
know
year
that we
they
can
just gave us
redress
money that
this,
said
but-
capital. So
I mean, is it possible? Have they already done it, or can we just ask for a general appropriation for public safety?
Well, that was in your request, and now we wait and see. I think that was just submitted not long ago.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Last week, I feel like I saw it was submitted.
But the language was just appropriation for public safety, or was it specific?
It said specifically a public safety station and had a price with it.
It listed it, so he had the total for it listed it out.
He had each project.
Yeah.
Larry had sent you a copy of the email.
Yeah, I can't recall the specific language, but I mean, not to get too deep in the weeds, but I mean, the devil's in the language. If it is specified to a public, if it's worded public safety station, that's not that specific. I mean, me, I would look at, there would be latitude there, potentially. But anyway, sorry, going down the rabbit hole.
I mean, we can see what we get. And then,
Yeah.
you know,
I guess to Mark's point, it would be 45.5, and whether any lower would depend on what we decide to do about the station.
right.
And that's
Dependent.
and that's up to, a majority of council. So,
Feels relatively broad.
New to us.
but I mean, can we all agree that any lowering of the rate further is going to be contingent on the
Right,
station?
Yeah.
I just don't. It feels like there's an inefficiency in building a fire station with fire trucks and firemen to respond to medical calls. That's just kind of my hang up on it. Like, I mean, I know there are other, like, there will be fires that they respond to too, but like, if most of what they're responding to is medical calls, I feel like it makes sense to invest in the equipment and resources that are best suited to handle that rather than the expense associated with a large fire station. Not necessarily large, but a fire station that is designed to handle fires.
I mean, I don't disagree with that logic. I mean, fully equipped, fully staffed, brand new fire station to fight fires is responding mostly to medical calls.
Yeah. Which will then, I mean, the way I'm kind of looking at it is if you have a unit that can respond to medical calls, that then frees up the actual fire trucks to do what they're designed to do. I mean, because we're spending, what is it, $3 million or something on a new ladder truck? To pay all that money to just have it respond to,
You don't want to send a ladder truck, $2-3 million ladder truck out to a cardiac arrest.
Right, yeah. It's like using a chainsaw when you need a pruning.
Sorry to
saw.
throw a caveat. Does the new fire station, do we have in the budget what equipment we're going to need? Are we going to need a new ladder truck up there in North Belmont?
I've done spoke to the ADJOURNMENT acquisition. Like I said, I'm going to St. Louis next week. This is all new to me as well, and I'm giving knowledge.
But are we going to need a ladder truck for the North Belmont station?
Goal to keep the ladder center city.
Okay.
With the rescue and that kind of stuff, but doing the job north and south, that's going to help us check the line.
Okay.
That's actually a good point. I mean, this is just brick and
This
mortar
is just
land
brick and mortar.
acquisition.
We're going to have equipment, cars.
People, the building's going to age. You're going to have to fix the building at some point. I mean, it's more than just the $8 million.
Well, we will see if there's any further information to be gleaned, and we'll decide. We'll proceed as indicated, and then if we decide to change, we know which.
And let me add to this. So you're saying in general you want to approve these projects, right? That just doesn't say, all right, staff, you've given us permission to run out here and do all of this stuff on our own. Each project is coming back to you. Ultimately, when we say this, we're not just going to run and start designing a station.
No, yeah, I get that. It's just, yeah.
And every year we'll go through this same scenario.
I can't wait.
I mean, it's a lot better than it was last year.
Well, that is true.
But you won't have to worry about determining tax rate. You can say, look, our revenues are coming in higher than we anticipated. Our growth rate was higher. Our costs weren't as much. We plug it in here, and you can make adjustments each budget year. You're being a little conservative now because you don't know 100% what's behind door number 3.
Right. Yeah.
So we basically limited our search because I knew we were looking at some other places in North Belmont. Are we married to the Abbey on location?
No, we're not.
Because that. The Abbey doesn't sell land; they lease it, right? So we'd be putting $8 or $10 million. By the time this thing's actually built, that 7.8 is going to be in the rearview mirror. You know.
$10,000 a year, but he never explained to me how long.
Can we? Can we go out to debt services for a piece of property we're leasing on? Jared?
I would.
I think so.
So if we don't own this land and we're leasing it.
Banks make loans on leasehold lenders.
That's true. I mean, it is better to own it.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
Well, we're not going to pay $8 million or whatever it is for the fire station all up front because we're debt servicing it, right? Or no? Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that we could actually do that. But Park says that we can.
Oh, no. Oh, there's still things on
Would
the
actually
agenda,
love
Charlie.
to make that
It's not
motion.
time to adjourn yet.
We're just hitting our stride. We got another hour or 2 to go.
Oh, you silly goose. There's much more left. Yes.
We got to recreate. Can do you want to take a short break before we go into this?
Oh, would it be possible to get a copy of the spreadsheet that we just worked up? Oh, don't tell me you lost it.
I know what the change is.
Yeah, we got the
Okay.
plug.
So we're good.
Don't get hit by a bus tonight.
Yeah. Look both ways before you cross the street.
Why not?
Write them down. Don't be fine there.
Charlie, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
$10 fee for the year's fee, also a $25 fee for the for family of 5. So at your discretion, I need some direction. Is that figure too low? Do I need to raise it, or what can I need to do with that? I need some kind of direction. So I can put it in my next year. So it's what you guys kind of
What page is it on?
16.
For a family of 5, they need $25.
Yeah. So I mean that's a real low figure right there, but that's what cover the cost actually.
I think it's on page 4, Mr. Turner. I think it's.
They have access, like I said, to the walking track,
Wait,
the basketball court, pickleball court, those.
Oh, page 16.
16 or 20, but.
So what's the cost of one card?
Right now, I'll show you the.
There's a couple different numbers.
I ordered 5,000 cards right now to get started. It costs us $1,000. But when you look at the processing of cards and all those different kind of items, I feed it for that.
Okay.
I know I do want on that. I went on this. I know you guys wanted a low fee for residents of this building and not charge them a lot.
Is the idea with the family membership that like everyone in the family would get a card, or
Everybody's gonna get a card in the family. Everybody gets a card.
okay?
I mean, I would like,
Do it. They'll go in there, just scan their card, into that, they go into the computer system, and that's how they gain access to the building. We will be able to take pictures, but we go in but typically don't go to that. That's the fee. You go down to information on the membership card. The membership can go ahead on down for the The membership charges is just a picture of the recreation zone on the front, and on the back side, you still have this information right here on the back of it.
So it's basically
and
like
your picture will come up on our screen on the computer term.
Okay.
On the desk.
How much do those things cost?
Those cards right here.
Yeah.
It's $5,000 for $1,000. Okay. That's not include the. It's going to be compatible with our RedTest software system. We give us internet. We already have the software. We're working on that. I think we can finish our final paperwork today. Really open up our RedTest software to be able to start using membership. So it's very critical that we get information, some kind of feedback on how much we're going to charge the residents and non-residents.
Well, again, you drive these figures from other jurisdictions in the area, including the resident rates, correct?
Some resident rates, some give it for free. Some of them charge a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them charge for what we actually have. So it's all over the place.
Okay. Well, I mean, any number I pick would just be a random number. So I don't.
You've never ran a rec center before?
I've worked for a rec center. I've never run one.
And put it in perspective, this is a unique rec center different than a lot of other places, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint an exact number. And talking with some of the colleagues around the state stuff, this is kind of different than what you would see in Gaston or in Holland, some of those areas. It's nothing like a facility like what we have over here.
So what information would we be collecting when people like sign up for one of these?
Just like you sign up for a regular sporting event or anything that we do in the city, you sign that information.
Okay. Okay.
The same form you sign up. You'll be able to do it online or in person.
And are we validating the resident, non-resident?
The same way we do it now, we do it with our GIS system. So once you put your information in, it'll pop up on our screen.
Oh, okay.
This is just kind of a thought. So if they sign up, right? So if I'm a resident and I'm coming in to sign up, what am I going to provide? Am I going to provide like my email address, my phone number, and all that stuff?
Yes, when you first just sign up, when you go into our software online on our RedTest software, you'll be putting all that information there just one time. You will have that.
Can we ask, can it be an option, and this is unrelated to this, but could it be an option to allow them to opt in, maybe communications from the city? And
We already add them to our mass, so we have mass email list.
Mhm.
We have specific recreation, planning, whatever. So they sign up for it on their own. So with them, we actually just add them to them and then give them the option to opt out.
Okay, perfect. I was about to say this is an opportunity to knock out like two birds with one stone with this. to get information out. Sorry, just a little point.
And these buildings that we see something wrong, but we this is a living process or something to change. So anytime we see the fees not match what we're looking at, I think that's what we like it's working and we can always change something big. But we need something to get started on.
I mean,
this is a brand new facility that's unique within this area, so it's going to require some of those changes, tweaking what the price of those is going to be.
I'm fine with the 10 and 25 myself, because I'm thinking, you know, we created this 3 courts. We are going to be subsidizing this somewhat with these basketball tournaments that we were going to try to recruit and bring here, hopefully, to offset some of our operating costs and membership fees. Is that still in play?
Yes, that's still very much in play. We're looking at the numbers I do have, 16 we go, where that is, back to page 5, maybe. I do have some fees in here for tournaments and stuff like that, but right now, when you rent this facility, you'll be getting the bottom half, which is the 3 basketball courts. Unfortunately, and they use a concession stand. Those are things that we're going to be working on with that. So we have an option of who come in and do the concession stand for us, like the city doing on our own, the recreation department, somebody comes to the rent, they'll be able to utilize the whole concession stand. So we do have that in place. I did have one thing that came up the other day, and I would mention the group. Whole agents came to me and they really want to rent the whole facility for a thing in November. I do not have those figures available for them yet. And that's another thing that
Well, according to the manual, that requires approval by city council.
right, that's what I was getting ready to say.
Yes.
So I need to move forward a bit and even get some pricing figures, but doing such a thing like that, written out the whole facility, I need direction from the city council to know that's something the option may go to consider. I'm not consider.
And that's for their annual meeting, for their annual event they have every year.
Oh,
Assuming that you guys have gone to it.
I think I have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's usually in Mount Holly.
Yeah, so, Sean has, expressed interest, they're highly interested in using it.
We're highly interested in renting it.
Yes.
And they said they'd be contacting some of you guys to compromise, so you would get all
Oh.
you guys and okay.
Okay.
But I just need some kind of direction to tell them when we move forward, get pricing on what they're putting out the whole facility, or we're going to keep it like we have, out the portion stuff. So the fees I have.
Well, I mean, I have
I
no
think-
problem renting out the whole
Renting out the whole
facility
thing.
for an appropriate
And shutting
price.
it down so no public can go in.
Right.
And it's
But, well,
making sure you
So
know
let's put a time.
Well-
Can we put a time limit on it then? So like you get it X amount of hours. Like you're not going to shut down the whole day.
Well, they
Maybe.
would need for that event, they actually have to set up.
oh,
They
yeah.
probably have to have 2 days.
Yeah, they have to set up at least 24 hours prior to is what you emailed me today.
Yeah, she mentioned 28,000 for something just to set up. That's something we probably didn't have at least a day of everything.
Mm.
About 2 days now. So they do
Mm.
it on Saturday. You talk about shutting down Friday.
Well, that's a different story.
Yeah.
How do wedding venues do it then? I mean, right? I mean, it's usually just a day. I thought.
Well,
Jim.
That's true. Let's ask the resident expert.
I
Jim
know
should be
that
an expert right now.
I
yeah.
know that we are going. Well, by we I mean other people are decorating the country club Friday when the reception is Saturday. So I would say yes, maybe the day before.
So the whole age is a 2-day event instead of the day before. Yeah. Now versus a wedding, so we do a wedding on basketball tournament. If we do basketball tournaments, you'll be on the first floor. You can have something upstairs on the second floor, like wedding, birthday party, or whatever. So there could be 2 different events going on at one time. So we're talking about probably 2 different things.
The entire facility, basketball courts and everything. They want the whole thing. I don't see a problem with it. I mean,
I just have a question about the rates because they seem. I mean, because I've looked for like event space in Gaston County before, and it usually runs like thousands of dollars for anywhere that's like remotely nice. And like here, like I mean, if you were to rent the main court for 8 hours, I mean, it's not even $1,000 like the whole day.
Well, if you're looking at, I participate in AAU basketball. Going right now, I'm close to $75 to $85 per hour. Is what they're paying now.
For what? For court?
For court.
Well, we've got 3, don't we?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so that's for court, what you're looking at, not just one court, that's for court.
So main court is one of the 3 courts.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted all 3, that would be 240. I mean, that's still.
It's got to be worth the squeeze. I mean, because a lot of people are going to be upset that we've closed the rec center for a couple of days. So
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah, like
for this casino night or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, because like I mean, I think it makes sense to be kind of budget friendly with like the membership rates, especially for our residents. But like, I would think that we could be pretty aggressive with what we charge to rent it out because it's brand new. There's not really anything else like it nearby. And I mean, it's.
The question you guys have is how much do you want to make it? Do you want to make it where people are really going to use it and you can offset it with that revenue, or do you want to make it a little bit more expensive where people may not rent it, so public tax want to use it? There's that balance, I guess.
Yeah, like I said, the going right now is about $75 to $80 an hour for court. Just one court, so that's 3 times 3 on the court. So you're saying $8 and 8 times 3.
Yeah. Well,
then you put in additional stuff. So the scoreboard is a fee that uses scoreboards. That's a fee. You use consistent, that's additional fee.
Are they having to pay for like staff?
Staff, that's included in the fee right there. Staff is like $20 an hour.
So they're paying $20 an hour for every person we have in there while they're renting the facility.
Right.
Does that get close to being a wash then? I mean, it ends up being net. I mean, where our staffing levels have to be so high that it negates whatever, or almost negates whatever we're bringing in.
No, I mean, like I said, I'm basing that off what's going right here now. Everybody's using around here that I talked to some of the other departments who they do that if I can put any kind of terms that's possible right. Cost of service and stuff is changing. That's why I decided like this.
So if we were to bring,
like Jamie just said, you might put a step out of a market.
if we were to bring in a secure tournament, I mean, what kind of revenue do you think we could expect off a tournament?
Based on looking at everything, we're talking about 25 teams. I think it would be
Like a related question, like how many memberships do you project we'd sell? How much revenue would that generate then? How much do we think the facility is going to cost to run? Like, what are the, assuming there's a deficit, like how much do we think these what are our numbers?
The tournament is a lot of additional fees we'll be able to add. Parking could be one. If you pull up to one of those places parking on there, they had an event this Saturday for the River Keepers had the event over here. We only charged them $1,000 to use that facility. That event will last a couple hours. But the parking lot was full. Everywhere, the whole parking lot everywhere, this whole area was full.
But
Even down the street was full. So we only charged them $1,000. We actually, so we lost money.
Well, yeah, that's what I don't want to happen.
Yeah.
You charge for parking, that's not included.
Yes.
You charge for entry into the facility also, that's not included. That's another additional extra revenue, and also percentage tax is not included in that.
Yes.
All these are piled on top of what we already charged.
Would it be possible for you to like work up a if somebody like an example of like somebody was going to come in and run like a basketball tournament, like what the fee structure for that would look like, and then and then the bottom line revenue number?
Yeah,
Does that
because
make sense?
we really thought that thing that Kevin had was pretty cool with plugging in all the numbers on the
Yeah,
spreadsheet.
we're really
and
big on
everything.
Excel sheets now.
So I mean,
All right,
what we
Jared, we need another one.
but I just
Just create
we
one
have
for
to
each
have some
department.
kind of idea, not just like, well, it's this and this, and then come to find out at the end of the fiscal year, hey, there was a huge shortfall or
Deficit.
But then,
When we did AU went through this in Clover, South Carolina, we did about 30 teams. We ended up bringing revenue of about $8,000 to $10,000.
But I'm talking about overall for the facility.
Yeah, no, I get what Mark's saying. So like maybe like a toggle with different scenarios. So if we rent out the whole place, what's gross set? So what is the total dollar figures coming into it? What is our expenses for staff on the hourly basis?
And then that could give us a good idea of what a reasonable rate would be. Where do we want to be? How much revenue do we,
We might also like realize that we like are forgetting something.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, like we forgot to charge for the cleanup or something.
I mean, for these kind of tournaments, are we going to be required, besides your staff, to have police? Are we going to be required to have gyms on site, let's say?
For these, you normally would have security at the site, so that would be offset.
Who's the company?
We have to deal directly with the police.
Whoever rents the facility.
Okay.
It's based on the number of people at the event. I was actually looking at that.
So if I wanted to rent that for a basketball tournament, you tell me I'm going to have to call Chief, and he's going to bill me. It's not going to be, subsidized by. But you bill the person that's renting it, not. It's not like subsidized by the city and everything.
Sometimes people pay cash, sometimes people get a check. We actually use a secondary employment company right now.
I'm just wondering from a process standpoint, if like for events here, if it wouldn't make sense to like have that all flow through one person, so that like if you want to rent the facility, you don't have to call like Zip and Corky and Gems or whoever else, to make it like more easier for the customer, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Wasn't that what the director? Yes. Isn't that what the recreation director's job description is?
Well, like because we were just talking about like you'll get a bill from Zip, you'll get a bill from Corky, like having that all on one invoice, so to speak, so that you're only dealing with Zip or whoever.
I don't think Charlie's got a question.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure the finance people appreciate it too.
You've been in this game a long time. Long time. You think it's fair, the prices we're charging?
Yeah, because that's just the base price. Once you start adding the other stuff, if we were looking at also making them have some COI, insurance. One thing we're looking at, that might be an added cost. Like I said, using the scoreboard is going to be a cost. Additional policemen based on the neural statistics is going to be an extra cost. So you're only looking at the base cost right here. When you start adding all of the additional prices, that's when the prices get going up.
So what about what about alcohol? So I understand that generally the policy would be no alcohol because obviously we don't want alcohol at youth basketball tournaments. That might not be a good mix. But like if Holy Angels is going to rent the place for their shindig, which is 2 nights, I have been there and I seem to recall that there's alcohol there. And so like how would we handle that? Because I'm assuming like for the rentals, like for certain rentals, like a wedding reception or a wedding rehearsal, you get a lot more of them if alcohol were allowed.
That's what we're looking at too, and that's going to seek your approval of that alcohol facility. So we inject that into that. How we're going to make that process work to get that alcohol.
Okay.
So they have to have additional insurance.
Yeah.
Okay.
In order for them
Yes.
to do that. But yes, it's
Okay.
Yeah, I would
Yes.
say yeah.
And
Yeah.
we will definitely get the police.
We have a police and there's insurance will also increase also. If we start adding alcohol to it, everything else is going to increase so high.
So you,
More insurance.
But there was discussion that we should only include beer and wine and not liquor.
I agree with that.
I think that's fine.
I agree with that.
You have a lot less damage and problems if you go with beer and wine. Having done it 27 years, that's what we always advise people to do. We didn't require it, but we told them that they could blame it on us. It worked much better.
Zip, you're looking at renting in the fall, starting the rentals in the fall, right? All right, so Jared, let's say from fall, 6 months out, we'll have some idea what our operating costs are, heating, cooling, and all that. Is there some way we can look at kind of look at that versus the revenues and see are our numbers at the right place to cover our costs and hopefully make some money? Okay.
But one thing, and I don't know what the price is for the Gastonia Center. We need to look at that too, because if we're doing Holy Angels, we want to be comparable. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good point, Martha.
Yeah, see, yeah, that'd give us two good ones to look at.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I know a few people.
So I'm assuming because we got these handouts that there's going to be some security, and I know we talked about that.
These systems, the unit is $16,000. These are portable that you can have either at the rec field or bring them over here.
Also, okay.
Indoor, outdoor, where you want.
You think South Point's going to use them? Because like I'd like to get into the game before the first quarter ends. Oh. Yeah.
Do we need them to be portable? Because we did have a discussion at one time about the contractor incorporating them into a facade or an entryway. So, it didn't look like you're necessarily going through a security check.
We won't be able to go through a facade like that because the building's already there. There's nothing like that in place.
I know, but this came up a while back while they were still in the construction.
Yeah. I mean, I understand the security concerns. Just I don't want it to feel like people are going into an airport when they're going to the gym.
And we can discuss this at a completely different time, if you want to.
Sure.
And I think there will be a need for it. And in today's world, people are used to going through them. A lot of people probably feel safer that they're there.
Because the Y doesn't have that, I don't think.
Well, it's been a while. Yeah, they do. They do.
Oh, I haven't been there in a while.
Yeah. It's been a while since. I think that's right.
We can bring the options back to you.
Yeah.
Well, let me just for clarity on this. I mean, I don't get too deep into it, but it was, I don't know who brought it up, Mark or Jim or somebody, when we were talking about having these, and this was still during the construction phase, that these would be incorporated into a wooden veneer facade, so we wouldn't look like we're going through a security check. So I guess my question is, do we ever pursue that, or are we just saying it's too late now?
When we brought that up back then, it was too late back then when we brought that up. So it's kind of too late when we brought that up in the last discussion. So
Okay.
it was the only other option I can see that didn't look like we wanted to detect your prison type situation. So something to come up with. The other was I'd say worse than what you did before.
Okay.
Well, I guess the other question about this, because I know we've got multiple entrances, so is the idea that we'd allow people to go in all of those entrances and then?
When we have a sport event, like a big tournament event, they all have access to come in from the front side. Just that area will be closed. Those sides will close, so you won't have to come in.
So are these only for large events then?
They can be for the daily operations. So when we do have a daily operation, we'll have this access to this door right here, and the main entrance will be a area.
So is someone going to be constantly monitoring this then?
Yes, we'll have staff here and staff at the front end. And the way this metal detector work is it'll come up on your phone. So if we can see somebody unauthorized or have a gun or weapon or whatever, I would contact the police would tell them we can set that up on our screen. But we're not police. We can immediately contact them. They can even have an app from their phone, off of their phone. So it'd be a mobile way for people to be able to see people carrying a legal weapon or whatever.
What if it's short of a gun? What if I just set it off because I don't know, left a pocket knife in my pocket and forgot about it?
You can be able to have different kind of sensors. It's got from level 1 to level 5. So how the transportation system works at the airports up to the high level 5, up to the lower level.
Well, I guess what I meant was if I trip the sensor, am I gonna have to wait for the police to show up to do a search or?
Unless we do it, I would rather have a policeman around somewhere.
Well, I understand that. It's just
we've developed no policy about this. We do not know our standards. This just came up recently, and he just wanted to show you.
Okay.
All right.
We have developed
All right.
So we can talk about this
Informational.
at the future.
We're not fine.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
And then,
All right.
and then just at the future one, Chief, as long as the Chief gets in inputs and probably does a presentation on it. Because again, I just want to make sure we do it right.
From a police standpoint, we won't be searching people. I think it's probably better if an employee of the rec center asks if you have, maybe you forgot something that's in your pocket, right? And approaches it in that manner. I don't know that even they're coming into our facility, we have those regulations up like the firefighters and safety laws and things. So, you know,
Fourth Amendment.
if someone has a CCW permit, they're not violating the law, right? They're going into the facility and they can't have weapons. Right? So we've got a fine line there. So
Yeah. Well,
we don't do it at the high school events anymore, specifically for that reason. We allow. That's why you see the teachers with the ones now. But we stopped doing that a long time ago.
okay. Yeah, well, I mean, I know we're not going down this rabbit hole, but like my reaction was that like I don't want to be standing there waiting for the police to show up, and then like it is also kind of embarrassing to have.
I think that's something that maybe we as the police can practice that honestly on the way to approach it.
Okay.
Where they could ask them questions and say, "What do you have with them?" Versus us saying, "Hey, maybe you forgot to talk about this." Versus you have to stay away from the police.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
okay. So if you're primarily concerned, the presentation to us are the fees, is that right?
Yes.
I mean, if we don't have any more debate on the fees, just let it go. Maybe when they open, like I was saying, at some point you can run the numbers and say your fees are appropriate to cover your cost, and hopefully you've got a profit to show. Because
If the rec desk software that he's implementing, I'll be able to just run reports out of there and get expenditures right out of the software. Or revenue rather. The expenditure side would come from whatever we're paying, staffing, electricity.
yeah,
So that'll be on the general ledger side, but it's not gonna be a problem.
I mean, I can't tell you what an appropriate rate is. I mean, Martha, speaking to whatever group that was, getting the comps in the area makes sense.
Yeah.
But I don't want to belabor the point because I can't tell you what the appropriate number is.
So I mean, and I would probably want to. I've got a hard copy. I would want to make some, perhaps some edits. Nothing substantive, but if we agree in principle of, for now with these rates and everything, I mean, are we looking for an approval today? Oh well, I aim to be helpful. So I would make a motion then to approve.
Second.
I've got to ask, did you make edits to your marriage vows?
No, I didn't. No, we're not. Hey, it's a mass. We're not allowed.
No edits?
We're not allowed. The church doesn't allow that.
You didn't write your own vows and go to her and say, well, I'm going to
Sickness and in health,
I strike,
wake forest, victory and defeat.
strike.
Me and Matt did.
Usually defeat.
Did you edit hers?
No, I didn't edit it.
Yeah, we wrote tell everyone we're going into closed session. All right.
Yeah, I was.
Move to go into closed session.
Yes, move to go into closed session.
Second.
To discuss pursuant to 143.318.11A5 to discuss potential acquisition of real property.
That's what I meant to say.
Yes.
I will second.
See ya. Thanks, Kevin. You did a good
Well,
job.
we got to vote.
Favor,